In the Emerald Isle, something unexplainable is happening. Tonight, prepare to witness the most frightening event in horror podcast history. A journey into the depths of horror history. First Class Horror presents the ClassHorrorCast. Evil wears many masks, but pure horror wears only one. Support First Class Horror on Patreon for as little as $1. Can't get enough of the horror? Carve yourself a deal from official merchandise, only on Teespring. Join us on all social media at First Class Horror. We have such sights to show you.
Welcome to the Plastic Fangs podcast.
I just want to apologize to Mike's mom and Josh's mom and my mom. I am so sorry, because it is my fault, because it was my project.
The search of the three missing Montgomery College students continues in Frederick County tonight.
10 days and thousands of man-hours have been unable to produce any clues.
We have a few leads, a few other options we want to take advantage of, and just try to put together some pieces to this puzzle.
Do you believe the occult may be involved in the disappearance of your son?
I am so scared.
Tonight, we proudly present to you ClassHorrorCast and Plastic Fangs Podcast Watch Party, the Blair Witch Project. Welcome. My name is John Ramsay.
And I'm Rodney Self.
And I'm Aaron Doyle with ClassHorrorCast.
We are about to watch probably the greatest film ever created in the history of film.
You took the words right out of my mouth there. This
Right.
is my... If you gave me an option to watch only one film for the rest of my life, this would be it.
I agree with you very much so, Aaron Doyle. You are a scholar in the arts of, as you say in Ireland, film. And
Thank you.
I agree with you 100%. I believe there are other scholars from Ireland as well, like our friends at the Because You Were Home podcast that feel the same kind of way.
I think it was shite.
Nice. That whole thing was a setup for that.
It was.
I was hoping because
We got you.
That was good. That was good. How long did it take to come up with that bit?
Actually, that was on the spot. We never rehearsed that.
Wow, that was good.
John, don't be modest. We've been working that out for the last 6 months. Actually,
It's yes. We knew.
Yeah, we were like, all right, so this is a great joke. First, we need to find a podcaster in Ireland, and we need them to friend us.
We got to have them think that it's all their idea to be friends with us. Yes.
It's called
it's called the long game.
Yes, the long con. If
there it is. Yeah.
Yes, but Blair Witch Project. Aaron, you and I have both discussed how much we loved it. John Ramsay had not seen it.
Yeah, I just watched it last week for the first time.
Yes,
I thought it was okay. I know. I'm sorry, but I will elaborate later because I don't want to bury the lead, but after we watch this, I'll explain it. But Yes.
Good thing I brought this glass of wine.
Yes.
And you have a bottle right behind you. All right.
Yeah. Meanwhile, John's gonna drink his fancy Perrier.
It's delicious. I love the bubbles.
Yes, I've got my delicious Coke Zero.
Oh, well,
It's
there you
Coke,
go.
but there's zero
Calories?
zero sugars.
Oh, gotcha.
No sugars. Coke Zero.
And
by
the
the
Irish
way,
guy is the only one with alcohol.
Yeah.
Well, for you, it's a different. It's
Right.
hey, it's later in the evening for you. You're relaxed.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes. And to be honest with you, I am getting over the second vaccine shot, and John's giving me a weird look because it's like whenever I mention it, he's like, "You're bragging," and
Oh, look what I got. Your job doesn't give that to you, does it? I didn't think so.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's just straight up Coke Zero with some caffeine. So we've got the drinks. It's like I feel like we're kind of preparing for something monumental, right? I mean, this movie was a fucking phenomenon. I mean,
it was a juggernaut. I mean, it really was.
So this movie comes out July of 1999. The end of July. I mean, and it's the last summer before the new millennium, right? Before the year 2000. And you know, it's very rare when a horror movie appeals to non-horror fans, but this movie did. I was talking with a friend of mine, Miss Ellen Kamalakis. She is actually the social media director of VDOT, Virginia Department of Transportation, their socials. She has actually won awards for those social media posts, and actually a lot of people follow them because they're pretty freaking awesome. And she is the one that I actually saw the Blair Witch Project. I actually saw it 2 weeks before it was released. It's funny how memory kind of changes over the years. I always thought it was a month before, but it was actually 2 weeks before. The Blair Witch Project actually in January went to the Cannes Film Festival, and that's how it gained popularity and everything. But anyway, to get back, I was talking to my friend Ellen, and I was trying to remember what the name of the theater we saw it at, and she was thinking that she believes that it was a theater actually around Bethesda, Maryland. Instead of like Georgetown, DC, that it was around Bethesda. So, which makes sense because this movie takes place in Burkittsville, Maryland. Eduardo Sanchez is actually from Maryland as well, right, Aaron?
Yeah, he is originally. I think he moved away a small bit now, but I think he's still within the same area. But yeah, a lot of this stuff, I think, a lot of location scouting, I think, was just done by them driving around, and they were just like, "Yep, we'll go there. Let's use this."
Absolutely. So seeing it a couple weeks before it's released in Maryland, it was kind of, for me, like a holy shit. Is it real? Is it not real? Just one of those things where I grew up surrounded by places with woods, and you'd hear of stories that people would say, about, especially here in Virginia, Civil War, and
where we're
like
at, Fredericksburg.
Yes.
I mean, there's a book called Ghost of Fredericksburg, and there's tons and tons of ghost stories throughout this like 25-mile radius of where we live. It's wrought with it. Yeah,
absolutely. The everyone, I think, has had like a story about an urban legend or something like that. And so when I go into this like small theater and the screen pops up, it's like you're immersed. It's like you definitely think that this is real, that you're almost watching like a snuff film. Now, before obviously we get into Blair Witch and all of that, you can't help but think about what came before. I'm going to point at Orson Welles and War of the Worlds, right? Where people thought that broadcast was real.
Yeah, the alien Martians were landing in Jersey. Yeah,
right. You look at Cannibal Holocaust, which is essentially kind of the same premise in a way, right?
It's a documentary within a movie. Yeah,
right. And how that even today is just it's a taboo film. They showed it on Joe Bob Briggs last season and prefaced that there is an actual turtle that is actually being killed and eaten in that movie.
Yeah, on film.
Right. But then a little bit before then too, there is another film that actually takes an urban legend of the Jersey Devil. Aaron, are you familiar with that movie, sir?
The Last Broadcast?
You are exactly right.
I am.
So
that was 1998, right?
I think it was 97 or
my bad. Okay,
maybe. So it's a couple years.
So it was what I'm getting at is a little bit before Blair Witch.
Now, what I would like to kind of preface, because a lot of people, especially over the years, talk about how, that this was something that, it wasn't the first. And yeah, ideas may have been taken and stuff like that. But the Blair Witch Project did it like no other way. They used their marketing on their website for Blair Witch. Was it BlairWitchProject.com or BlairWitch.com?
Yeah.
This website was the first ever website that I purchased something from. I got a poster and a t-shirt off of the website. You could go online onto their website and see videos, and there were like missing posters again to give credence that it was real. The marketing, the word of mouth that this film had something that, Cannibal Holocaust, it was about shock factor and all of that. The Last Broadcast may have been a great idea, but they didn't have the marketing know-how or marketing gravitas.
They didn't utilize the infrastructure to make this fiction a reality, if you will. Yeah.
And so Blair Witch actually not only created, essentially jump-started a genre in horror that we now know as found footage, that so many other things would gonna kill the
we'll edit that in post.
Yes. But so many movies, since then have been tried to do new and original things with it, and but Blair Witch not only did that for horror, but they changed the way that the motion picture industry as a whole would market their films.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, definitely.
So, the argument that, the Blair Witch stole, that the ideas weren't original or anything like that, I think can be kind of quelched just because of that. And it's because of all of those things, and then going and seeing the movie and thinking that it's real, being so freaking terrified that I slept in my friend's closet that night because I was freaking terrified, because she had woods all around the back of her place and everything. This is the last movie that made me that terrified. And
me too.
Right,
definitely.
Aaron?
Right? And I can definitely even when I watch it again, if I turn off the lights and stuff and I've got the sound up quite high, I can still, it doesn't get me the same way, but I can still kind of immerse myself back into it again.
Oh yeah.
And just on that thing of a lot of people say that they stole the idea from the Last Broadcast and whatever. a lot of people don't know they were already in like super early pre-production, like well before that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a lot of things there that are unwarranted. Now, I will say it seems a bit coincidental that, you know, they're both kind of these weird urban legend movies, found footage, and they're kind of done in a similar style. But I really don't feel like that the guys stole anything from them. And I do treat it as like the turning point for that subgenre. And I mean, I can't even think of anything to this day that has done what they done using the website. And I mean, like, they had so many extensions of the lore afterwards.
Yeah.
Even to this day, like, I can't think of anything else that's really done that, and it's worked so well. Like, the fact that you're about to do a watch party about this is kind of like, and I've only found out new things about the lore recently.
Oh yeah,
says a lot, and it's like 20 years later.
Yeah, I was doing the math. I'm like, it's been 22 years.
Yeah.
That's yeah. Oh, you I think you had told us before on a previous episode, but how did you first get into, or how did you first watch this movie, Aaron?
It was one of those things that at the time it came out, I can't remember exactly, but I remember in the video store they had this yellow label that had this like explicit content warning or whatever, or stuff like that, and it had spread around the town I live in is quite small. The word had spread that this was like the video store guy, I suppose he was in on it, like it was like one of those, like, you know, hey kids, here, it's like, we have this movie that's like real, and it's like this thing. And then that just spread throughout the town, and everybody was talking about this thing, and it was like, no, the reason they've got the yellow sticker is because this isn't a movie, this is real, and it's police files and all this shit. And like, it just took off from there. That alone was enough to scare me.
What year was this?
Maybe a year or two after it came out, because we were very behind the times here. I mean,
so it was either 2000, 2001.
Yeah, like, we're still going around in horse and cart in Ireland. So
no, you're not. I can say the same thing in Pennsylvania in some parts.
But we were a little bit behind the times, like, with, you know, I'm sure people figured out fairly quick, you know, about the fact that this thing was all not a hoax, but, you know, it was all fabricated.
It was entertainment. Yeah.
And I think we were a little bit behind that. Nobody around here really had even access to the internet. You might have a guy like the older kid who lived down the street who'd be like, oh, I read her journal, it's online.
Yeah.
And like, he would tell everybody else
what
it said. So it was kind of like an episode of like, Are You Afraid of the Dark or some shit?
Oh yeah.
And everybody would be like, and then like, I would go home and like think about this. I'd be like, oh my God, what the fuck? And every Friday we'd go to the video store. As I would come up to that on the shelf, everything would like kind of go quiet, and I would have like tunnel vision at the cover, and I would just feel really weird about it. And then eventually we rented it, and I was just so fucking afraid. It was just unbelievable.
Yeah. It
was like this I can't say anything, but it was just a scene in it where one of the characters starts screaming, and even thinking about it now, it just like I felt like I had seen everything and nothing at the same time. And like, it freaked me out so much. And even the first couple of times I watched it, and even after I found out it wasn't real, it still freaked me out. And I think that's why I'll always every time I watch it now, I always think back to those memories and how good it got me. And now I suppose my love for it comes from just finding out all the little extra things and all the new books that come out, and all this extra stuff. Like, I've been on the hunt for, they released a figure years ago, like in the early 2000s.
The Todd McFarlane?
Yeah.
Movie Maniacs. Yeah.
So there was two versions of that.
Oh.
There's one where it's like this weird thing with horns. But then there was another version. If you look at the box art for the figure, there's another version that looks like this weird woman's head screaming.
Yeah, that's the one I remember. Yeah,
that's the one I want, but that one is like impossible to get.
Oh,
Because it's
wow.
a variant head, I think. I think it's the same body.
Oh, I got you.
But the head is a variant, and it's like impossible to get.
See, because I think I have an Ash Williams Evil Dead one, or Army of Darkness, brother, and I think I have a Brandon Lee Crow one, and I remember that on the back of it. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Well, the great thing about the Blair Witch Project and the marketing and all of that, you talk about the lore. There were CD-ROM games that they had that you'd put in your. I mean, I had a friggin' gateway computer, if you remember. The friggin' you'd go online and build a computer and be sent to you, and it's in a cow box and shit. So, but not only that, but man, when I saw the Blair Witch and I got into it, like I said, I went online immediately and I ordered the merchandise. But man, they had this, they had a soundtrack that had acts, musical acts like Lydia Lunch was on it, Bauhaus, the Creatures, the Afghan Wigs, Typo Negative, were on there. They just really, even with this whole marketing machine behind it, people were still convinced that this shit was real.
And the really cool thing about that soundtrack, like, and this is kind of what does it for me, I think, with this franchise or whatever you want to call it. That soundtrack was marketed as the tape that they found in Josh's car.
Yes,
his mixtape that he had put together.
Yeah,
and it was like Josh's CD mix or whatever from his car when they brought it in for evidence. Like that, just that touch for me alone would make me want to buy that.
Absolutely. I mean,
that's pretty smart. That's smart. That's smart marketing.
Absolutely. I mean, in fact, before Blair Witch Project was released nationwide, the Sci-Fi Channel ran a friggin' documentary that, I mean, if you go back and watch The Curse of the Blair Witch now, I mean, it is like a real documentary. So again, they kept pushing the it's real thing, and again, just blending that whole reality and fiction,
reinforcing the narrative.
Yeah. So, gentlemen, are we ready?
I don't know. I'm scared.
Aaron, I know this is your favorite. Any other tidbits, any little nuggets you want to drop before we get into this here?
Yeah, I suppose I won't get into the full breakdown of it. I might post it online somewhere else because it's quite extensive. I just kept writing and writing and writing. So a couple of things about the character of, I guess, the supposed Blair Witch.
Ellie Kedward?
Yeah, like we'll hear about it quite early on, and I'm going to leave out some of the other stuff. There's names like Rustin Parr and Eileen Treacle. You'll hear all those names, and it kind of explains it. But there was, I think, a backstory there that had been created for them to do a prequel that had never came to light, and I don't think it ever will. But and the only reason I wanted to mention it really was it's kind of funny, and I was surprised that. So originally, apparently, the story was to be that Ellie Kedward was born in Cork in Ireland. To an Irish mother and a Welsh father. So there's a lot of different theories on where the story went from there. There's one theory that her father died of smallpox and her mother died during birth, and a stranger raised her and put her on a boat to the States, and that's how she ended up over there. But apparently that story was made up because the real story is her father was captured and tortured. Now, this gets a bit, for anyone who's listening, this gets a little bit grim. So you're just going to have to bear with me. You might actually understand before we watch the movie why she ends up potentially being the Blair Witch. So, yeah, he's captured and tortured while she is repeatedly raped, beaten, and abused with her dead father's bones at age 10.
Jesus Christ. That's dark.
She is then impaled into her father's body using sticks. They disembowel him, and then they shove her into the hole, and then they stab sticks through her to pin her to his body.
Oh, God.
Yes.
She's then discovered by a local hermit, where she learns something called, I'm going to butcher this now, Transistus fluvi, which is a real occult alphabet. It's like
That sounds almost Latin.
It's like a witch's cipher or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's used apparently for curses and spells, opening other dimensions, which kind of explains some of the stuff that goes on in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So then in 1741, the Great Frost kills 300,000 people in Ireland. This includes the hermit. She ends up being taken, and because she can't talk properly and stuff, so they bring her to an asylum in a place called Waterford. So when she gets there, it's like they're doing all weird shit to the patients. They're like having sex with them and like all this weird stuff.
Nefarious.
She loses 6 kids to miscarriage and 1 to rape. She goes crazy, basically. The asylum basically makes her crazy.
Mm-hmm.
She kills the offenders one by one and flees the asylum. She returns to the hills of Skibbereen in County Cork. And there is small piles of rocks assembled to signify the children that she lost.
Ah.
So she's now under the influence of this Transistus fluvi. So she's like no longer in control of her body. So from there, she's discovered by the charlatans, and she's taken to the dungeons of Wexford for 15 years, where she is repeatedly raped, tortured, and isolated in darkness. Fun fact, I actually live in Wexford.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in the year 1769, something called the Burning of Wexford happens. Basically, the town is attacked, and everything basically is just all-out war. She ends up with 30% of her body burned. She escapes with stolen resources and boards the Reliant, which is a sailing vessel bound for America. 6 months later, in the summer of 1769, she arrives in Blair, Maryland. In 1785, several kids accuse her of luring them to her home to draw blood from them. She's found guilty of witchcraft and banished to the woods in the winter. Now, other reports state that the townspeople actually dragged her into the woods and tied her to a tree and left her to die.
Mm-hmm.
Some other people say she was just told to get out of the town, basically. So apparently the young children from the town went into the woods to see if they could find her dead body or whatever. It was like this thing that everybody talked about. So when they went out there, they found out that she was still alive, tied to the tree. So they set the dogs on her, who ripped her apart, and then they beat her with sticks and stabbed her with knives. They dipped their hands in her blood and put handprints all over her body, and then hung her body from the same tree.
Huh.
Now, this seems a bit over the top and insane.
A little bit. A little bit.
What are you talking about? That's just a weekend. What are you talking about? Oh, my God.
By midwinter that year, all her accusers and half of the town's children were gone. Fearing a curse, the townspeople abandoned Blair and never spoke her name again.
Mm-hmm. You know, if my Wi-Fi goes out, I consider myself, kind of unlucky. It's kind of the end of the world, but
yeah,
I guess compared to her story, it's not so bad.
I stubbed my toe. End of the world. Wow.
There's actually a site online that was put together by one of the producers of the movie. I think Dan. I can't remember his surname now. I'm not sure if it's the history of Ellie Kedward or elliekedward.com. I had actually been talking to him on Facebook last year, but he's in the process of creating like an entire backstory for her when she's in Ireland. And there's actually video they've done. You can actually watch, like, I guess it's like a mini series of her in Ireland. And I think it's on season 2 at the minute. There's a season 3 due out, and him and a lot of people involved, and the guy Matt, who wrote the book 8 Days in the Woods, they're actually all planning a trip to Cork, I think. Once the pandemic is over, they're doing like a Blair Witch Ireland tour thing and bring you to all these destinations where apparently she was up in the hills. And all this stuff. It's like a
That's
7-day tour.
That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's very cool.
That's kind of cool. I want to get involved in that.
Heck yeah.
I was definitely wondering if that's something that you would want to do, but I mean, duh, right? Man, that's, I mean, and that story alone, I mean, you can see, as big as the Blair Witch Project was, you can see that it's just a small piece of the legend, right? Much like Sleepy Hollow with Ichabod Crane. There's more behind it, that Headless Horseman and everything.
Yeah.
I think Tim Burton's version tried to dive a little bit more in with Christopher Walken, right?
Yeah, as with actually saying it was a Hessian and all that. Yeah.
Right. But man, I mean, it's like when you hear something like that, I mean, it could be like the Lord of the Rings of horror, right?
And you know what I love about this? I asked Eduardo Sanchez about this, and this is my favorite part about what they created. I was like, okay, so that's our official, unofficial backstory, and he was like, who knows? Have you not heard the other 10 different stories and theories? He was like, it could be any one of them. I mean, I don't know.
Why would, if you're Eduardo Sanchez, why would you want to leave it concrete, right?
Yeah.
It's
the same way why the Joker in the comic books is so amazing. He once said, like, I don't even know. I tell so many stories. I don't know what my backstory is anymore. I mean, they literally had, so it's like such an enigma, a mysterious, so mysterious. Yeah.
Right. Well, and it's, a few years ago when that movie The Witch was released, I always kind of thought, how cool would that be if that was the prequel movie? And it's like you didn't really realize it until like you went and saw it, and you're like, holy shit, they made a prequel to the Blair Witch Project, but they didn't market it that way. But I mean, duh, that would be the dumbest thing to do, that if you're going to tie it to the Blair Witch Project, one of the biggest, highest grossing films of all time. And by highest grossing, meaning profitable, which I'm sure we'll get into in a little bit. But yeah, I mean, this movie is just one that won't go away. I have a feeling it's going to be around for a very, very long time. And any more stories to uplift the show?
No, I think I'll leave them for later on.
Okay, very
beautiful.
Good. I got it off to a nice happy start. So
yes,
yeah,
yes.
Any predictions for the fight, champ? Pain.
Well, here in the States, John, I believe you and I are watching this on Netflix.
Yep, on US Netflix. Yep.
And Aaron is watching on YouTube, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, in Ireland, we don't get good films on Netflix, so
that sucks.
That is, yeah. Well, the good news is that whether you have the DVD or the VHS or it's streaming, or you got the laser disc, if you have the film on 35 millimeter and have a projector at home, any way that you can watch it, join along. And all right, so I'm gonna hit play. And
is everyone set up?
Are you set up? All right.
Okay, I'm set.
All right, so I want to hit play in a 3 and a 2 and a 1. And the first thing we see, obviously, is Artisan Entertainment.
Yep,
the logo
here we go.
Pop up. Rated R for language, which there's plenty of that. And, of course, Haxon Films.
Is that supposed to be like a nod to Haxon, the old? It is okay. The old silent witchcraft movie. Yeah.
See, already it's shaking, right? So that right there is like, holy shit, it's real. And then you get the screen. In October 1994, 3 student filmmakers disappeared in the woods near Burkittsville, Maryland, while shooting a documentary. A year later, their footage was found.
They apparently argued about that opening paragraph for like weeks on end on how to word it.
which makes sense.
Who Eduardo and Daniel?
Yeah, like when they sat down, they had a lot of back and forth about how they should word that paragraph, which seems kind of trivial now, but I mean, it's kind of iconic in a way.
It is.
Because it's the first thing that sets it up for the audience.
Yeah, right.
Like, this is what you're going to jump into, yeah.
Just think, the opening in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, right?
Yeah.
What if John Larroquette had said something different?
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, granted, he, it was written for him, obviously.
I'm going to throw out some tech stuff real fast just to kind of get out of the way. This was written and directed by Daniel, is it Myrick?
Yeah.
Is that Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez? The wide release of it, like Rodney said, was in July 30th, 1999. The budget, from what I looked up, was between $200,000 to $500,000. Did any one of you guys get an exact?
It was around that, yeah.
It was somewhere, okay. And box office, I don't know if this is I think this is worldwide, $248.6 million US. So that's a lot of cheddar cheese for such a success. Kind of a bit.
and this movie just picks up because we see Heather and Josh meet each other. They're playing around with the cameras. Now, they actually gave the directors, Eduardo, and who's the other guy?
Daniel Myrick.
Yeah.
Myrick.
They gave him a 3-day crash course film school on how to work this stuff, right? So because the actors are filming shit and they've got like a loose outline of what they're going to be doing and GPS and all, and we'll get into, of course, all of that. But I mean, it's, you immediately get introduced to these characters, man. They're kids. They're in film school. They're, they're excited about this project.
So that girl there,
we're
seeing the waitress, that's Eduardo Sanchez's sister.
Ah, okay.
She was a plant, and the actors didn't know about it.
Ah,
very cool.
Yeah, and the camera that Josh had a few minutes ago actually sold on eBay about 4 or 5 years ago for $10,000.
Yeah,
it didn't work. He broke it during the filming, but they sold it for $10,000.
What would have been the retail if you just went and bought it? I'm sure not $10,000, but
I would imagine so.
My god,
it was around $500.
Wow.
Yeah.
Didn't they like? Hold on, what was it? This movie you're telling me, Rodney, that they bought a lot of the stuff they recorded on? They took it back to Circuit City.
Yeah, not all the cameras,
not all of it, right?
But a lot of the stuff they returned because they put stuff on credit cards and all of that, and
this is also the only scene shot in Burkittsville too.
Indeed. And that sign has been stolen from Burkittsville, Maryland, many, many times, especially when the movie first came out, man. People flocked to Burkittsville and they took the fucking sign. They were like, where's the witch? And give me the sign and all this shit, man. People went nuts, which is ironic because it kind of sets up the plot for Blair Witch 2, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Which I saw in the theater. The one I saw before this one.
Yes.
Heather actually wrote the dialogue for this stuff as well. They actually let her write it herself for these documentary within a documentary scenes or whatever.
That's smart.
Yeah,
because that would definitely fulfill her as the character. That's really smart. Lazy but smart too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because I think they wanted to give her, because you can kind of tell from fairly early on that she's like trying to take control of the whole thing, and it's like her project and her movie, and it's what I want,
right?
And I think that played into that.
And see, right here again, this is what makes it so realistic: is the old man, and the people talking about, oh yeah, I've heard of it, and they like to talk about it. John and I kind of experienced this when we went to Point Pleasant and saw the Mothman, and the locals just were like, wanting to tell you stories about it, and it was, I mean, again, it's like you almost feel like going to Point Pleasant, you're kind of living an experience similar to what's going on,
because it changed the landscape of that town.
Oh yeah,
the incident in 67, I believe. Yeah,
the clip there with the lady and the the baby or whatever, the little girl. So that's a lady named Susie Gooch. And I've actually spoken to her. I done an interview with her about a year ago.
Oh, nice.
But she actually didn't have any involvement or wasn't given any notes about the movie whatsoever. She just wanted, I want to say she's a teacher or something like that. Wow. And she saw that they were in the diner and wanted to help out. So she just went on camera and just started spouting shit, basically.
Nice.
And yeah.
So that reaction from that little kid is just real.
That's all real. And on the 20th anniversary, they actually done a tour of some of the places from the movie, and they brought her and her adult daughter out to it as like a joke, and they had her holding her in her arms and stuff. And this guy here was shot after the studio saw the movie. The guy with the backwards hat, he was put in afterwards.
Oh, I guess the fill in a little more,
a little more backstory. He
yeah.
gives you the Rustin Parr kind of. Yeah. I don't want to say too much because it'll.
Well, and
I look like this. If anyone's listening, they probably watched this already. Sure. I would hope.
Well, and that's the thing, is that they were actually given some extra money to do extra stuff with, from the studio,
like reshoots and
a little
like
bit,
B unit, yeah.
It goes from the black and white to color, and but again, they look so lifelike. This gentleman that's talking now reminds me of like uncles in my family.
Yeah. He seems like someone that you don't think would be lying to you,
right?
Yeah.
And this is probably, if there was any creepy kind of monster type of character in this movie, this has to be it. And Aaron, I have a feeling you have some information about this lady,
Mary Brown.
Yes.
Yeah. So, first thing is, this is a lady named Patty DeCoo, right? And this is her actual house, and that wooden gate and shit is her actual gate. That wasn't put in there. A lot of people think that was put in as like a reference to the Blair Witch. No. All this shit that she's going to talk about here in a sec, where she talks about being an actress and a dancer and all this shit, she actually apparently believes this in real life. So they had put out a notice for volunteers for the movie, for set design and different things. And she was actually helping design the Rustin Parr house. And some of the guys working in the art department had told Eduardo and Dan, look, this woman's crazy. Like, I think you might, she's talking about being an actress and stuff. Meet her and then see, do you have anywhere to slot her in? And like, as soon as they met her, apparently they were just like, okay, yeah, we've got to like do a thing for her. So they gave her a 3-page backstory.
Did she stick to the script?
I think she kind of just started her own spouting shit. A lot of people think she's the Blair Witch.
Yeah. And that's kind of like when I kind of thought when I first saw the movie. Now, if you notice, this interview's a little bit out of focus. That's Josh Leonard's inexperience with the camera, because he was the one filming it. But they kept it in there, because of course these are film students. They're gonna have some imperfect stuff.
Well, also too, they could just be capturing the audio, and maybe they could just throw some video in there if they have a good shot, for editing. So, but because watching that, because I just watched this for the first time last week. Watching that scene with the Mary Brown character, I was like, she's too good. Is she really crazy? She probably suffers from like paranoia, not paranoia, but it's like a personality disorder or something like that. Yeah. Oh, that's kind of sad when you think about it. But yeah.
I genuinely, and even still, like, I have some weird thing in my mind because there's so many theories out there that I'm like, no, she has something to do with the Blair Witch, or like she's like some crazy fucking cult leader or something. So this scene here, where they're in the motel or hotel or whatever, they're actually drinking. I think they wasted all the production money on the first night and got like super drunk. But this is a key scene. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it. A lot of people, well, I'm not sure if a lot of people have heard of this. So there's also another theory about this whole movie so if you read Heather's diary online, she alludes to the fact that her and Josh have
yes, Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they used to date.
So she talks about that kind of more in her diary and other bits. And a lot of people feel that Josh kind of got this whole thing together and agreed to do it and got Mike involved because they actually brought Heather out to the woods to kill her.
I heard about this theory.
Yeah.
So this scene is like the first time you kind of start to see where like you can tell that Josh is a little bit.
Yeah.
They seem to be clashing, kind of.
Right. And apparently there was a whole story that was going to be like a love story with them. And, you know, as we'll move forward, we'll kind of see, but apparently the tension between Josh and Heather was pretty real.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, just, you know, now these guys here fishing, again, people that I could be related to. Absolutely. 100%.
Yep.
Yeah. And this is where you learn kind of like another one of those creepy stories, right? About the hand, you know, and the little girl drowning and all of that. You just, again, it's like with any kind of mythology, you get so many of these weird stories. And
so these two guys actually,
yeah.
So the older guy is called Bob Griffith, and the younger guy I actually interviewed last year as well, Ed Swanson is his name. They're actually they're father-in-law and son-in-law.
Oh,
and it was, I think the guy with the glasses is a guy that Eduardo Sanchez played like softball with or something as a kid.
Huh.
And I think that's why a lot of these characters, like what you've said already a couple of times, they all seem like, I'm like, oh yeah, that's like the guy from down the street, or that's the uncle, or that's the weird cousin.
They're relatable locals. Yeah,
they just seem like regular, and like even the kind of chit chat between the two of them, it seems really natural, and like they're talking about something that, oh yeah, that's that thing. Like I'm sure we all have a story about our town. You could say, oh yeah,
and then adding into it, like, oh no, you forgot the other part. Oh yeah, I forgot about yeah.
Or man, that part was made completely up. But this is what really happened. Everyone knows like the real story of what happened, you know, and it's
because they're talking about Coffin Rock here, and apparently the original idea was for something called Hunter's Ridge. And they renamed it Coffin Rock just because they found that location and they couldn't find a ridge that looked good enough. So they're like, yeah, whatever. It looks kind of like a coffin rock.
Well, see, I like that better. I like that a lot better because you're like, oh, was it named that? Oh, it was named that because of the incident. Okay.
And also that road that they're driving down is called Black Rock Road.
Yep.
And all the mythology was done by a guy named Ben Rock. So go figure.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, and Coffin Rock plays a pretty big part in Book of Shadows and Blair Witch 2.
I have to go back and watch it. I haven't watched it since I saw it in a theater.
Yeah.
That was 20 years ago.
I break it out because the police, what's the name of the police? The sheriff, they're Sheriff Craven, right? Yeah, which is obviously a nod to Wes Craven. Sheriff Craven is interviewed in the documentary, and of course in the movie it's different, you know, and you know, there you go, Josh, checking out Heather's
Tuckus
behind. Yeah, there you go. Now, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I've done this kind of thing before. You go out in the woods and you're kind of walking around and looking at stuff.
I really like as well, like the characters you've got. I mean, they're all cast so well because you've got Heather who's like so controlling, and like we said before, it's all about her. It's what she wants, and she kind of twists people into doing what she wants to do. Then you've got Mike, who's like the laid back, doesn't seem to really care, and as it progresses and gets scarier, you can tell he's like the logical, like, get me the fuck out of here. I don't want to video anything anymore. I don't want to do anything. Just get me home. And then Josh is like the kind of confident. He seems to clash with Heather a lot,
right? And I mean, it's something, kind of a familiar theme, because if you think about witchcraft and you think about the Salem witch trials and things like that, it was about women that were unfairly prosecuted for something absurd, right?
Scapegoated.
Exactly. Some could make the argument, for Heather in this too, right? Is because she gets, I think, sometimes a lot of the blame for this.
They don't like being told what to do by a woman.
She's
possibly.
She's a strong woman, but also some things that happen, I think, kind of throughout the film that kind of lend to that. And here we go. The days before, though, you just had the tents that just popped up, right? You take them out of the chute and they just pop up. They're using poles and all that good stuff. We got Eddie the Flying Gimp here. That's a nod to Alex Winter, right?
Yeah, Idiot Box.
Yeah. And the first night, man, it's like, and of course we get the fart jokes. They're still having a good time, man.
Yeah, this is where everything is still like chill. Yeah. It's like, yeah, we're having a good time. We're doing it, man. We're living the dream.
Yeah. Oh, I heard some noises last night. Yeah, sure.
And I feel like, I feel like that if you were to do something like this in any woods, it would probably kind of go like this. Like your first night, everyone would probably be like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
But maybe the longer you might stay out there, you start to kind of like, it's that thing. If you look into the darkness long enough, you'll start to see shit.
Yeah.
There's that. But then just the whole idea of being around the same people for X amount of time and you're not comfortable, you're out of your realm, and people start getting on your nerves. And almost like the real world, that's when people start getting real. And that definitely has that's a through line through this too, definitely.
And of course we get the whole, you're not going to get us lost, a little bit off track, but, and all that. And, Heather there, again, you've got two very confident people, who I think are maybe putting up that front of confidence and don't want to admit any mistakes.
Because right here, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. I was just going to say, I feel like that just from looking at her there and her reactions and the fact that they're mentioning don't get us lost, I feel like she's already second guessing.
Yeah.
But she's, like you said, she's trying to be like, no, I know everything. I'm good.
Sure.
She doesn't want to say, you know what, guys, I'm actually fucked. I don't really know what. We're already lost.
Yeah.
Now, see, that's the thing and we're still getting some jokes. We're getting a little bit of joke, as we're seeing the patchy chest hair, which I can relate, Mikey. I'm sorry, buddy.
Well, I was going to say, you can definitely tell like the hierarchy.
Yeah.
It's Heather, Josh, and then Mike. Mike is like the union guy who's, and then Josh is like the assistant AD, and she's the director. So I mean, that's really like the hierarchy here.
This scene here is another thing that people always tie into the killer theory of the two guys killing her. The fact that he's recording her.
Yeah.
They don't ever really touch the cameras, but like she's like using the bathroom and they're like recording her, and that alludes to this apparent snuff movie they were out to make.
It's like a Leopold and Loeb situation. Yeah.
It's an interesting theory. I mean,
it is. Makes you think. Yeah. Definitely. Because like, was this huge elaborate ruse just to get her out there and letting her think that it was her idea in the first place, even though it wasn't, or taking the opportunity to do,
to be able to twist it. Yeah. You can tell like here already, Mike is already, I love him in this movie so much because I feel like that would be me. And he seems so natural. It doesn't feel like an acted thing. He's just like, fuck this. This is dumb. We're lost. Right. Admit it. He doesn't want to fuck around at all.
Yeah. I mean, and why would you? I mean, I've kind of been in that situation where you depend on someone else and you get lost. Sure. I mean, and believe me, it's never fun to get lost in the woods, and, it's like that map, they keep concentrating on the map, and I think we'll, figure out why. But also too, I mean, gosh, there's so many other things, because it's like the first night happened, and tensions are arising. Mike ain't having none of it.
This is the beginning of the dissension, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's almost
look at his reaction, his facial expressions there, that like the way he looks up at her and stuff.
What okay. You were saying earlier about like GPS, and the directors are not with them. They're shooting their own footage.
Right.
So like when they're doing this right here, what direction are they having?
So they had like GPS markers kind of set up, and they would be given like in film cans and stuff, like, so they would have supply drops to them.
Okay.
And like during the night, they'd hear stuff at nighttime and weird noises. And Heather was actually interviewed about it in a documentary, where she was talking about how, they would hear the noise and be like, oh, that's the Haxon guys out there, doing stuff. And, essentially they would get kind of, the dailies, of course, would be given to them. And, the directors would kind of push them in a way. I think, gosh, they had over 20 hours of footage filmed by the cast that they then had to, cut into a movie. Yeah. So, but it's like they were kind of pushed along, but very articulate in a way where they were being led in a direction, because they had to set up stuff like we're seeing here, the rocks and the trees, right? And they're coming across it like, and this right here is kind of like when
the rock formation stuff,
they're entering and gosh, there's so many theories about this movie. It's like, is it time travel? Is it not time travel? Is it this? I mean, it's like, when do they enter? And it's like this right here. It's like they're entering the Blair Witch's, her sanctum, if you would, her portal, if you would. And it's like they
just reached her property, if you will.
Exactly. Right. And I mean, so you're seeing the rocks, and from what the story that Aaron told us earlier, that has
about all was that Ellie's children.
Yeah, so apparently this is supposed to signify, if you count the rock piles here, there's 7 rock piles, and that's a nod to the 7 kids that apparently Rustin Parr killed.
Yes.
Oh, okay, got it.
And also theories about that shot. There's so many great shots, by the way, in this, which is crazy. But the shot of the fire on Josh's face almost signifies, like a false foreshadowing that Josh is the bad guy in all of this too. Again, going back to that theory about, Josh and Mike, but I'd even come across some theories that had talked about how it was Josh that was kind of a crazy psychopath, and
I know, like with just reading the captions, that they keep going after poor Mike.
Yeah.
They keep on, like, they're just comparing him to Gilligan from Gilligan's Island.
That actually cost them a lot of money, I think, to get that reference in there.
Oh, yeah.
Which is kind of funny. That and the power bar thing.
Oh, right. Yeah. Especially something that's people just keep on watching it over and over, and because it's people are going to want to get paid.
Which I think I had seen an interview with Eduardo Sanchez where he talked about they still get power bars sent to them.
Yeah. Even that now, that's something that I always wonder about, the fact that she knocked over that rock pile.
Yeah.
Is that because there's a lot of theories about the Blair Witch as well that says, because of what she went through, apparently she doesn't actually just randomly kill people. she will only kill people who come within her territory or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's other theories that say, no, she carefully selects people to draw them to the woods, making them think it's their own free will.
Oh.
So that, you know, so for example, Heather would have been already under her curse or under her control.
Yeah.
When she decided that she wanted to make a movie about this.
I remember seeing this in the theater for the first time, and it's like the night scenes were the most terrifying because you're looking for something. You're looking for something. This isn't like Paranormal Activity where it's just one continuous shot of a bed and then the sheet moves and you're like, you know, this is like you're looking just for anything. And then of course then the daylight comes, so you're kind of experiencing a little bit of what they're experiencing, right? Is at nighttime is when it's scary and your heart starts pounding a little bit. Then the daytime comes and it kind of puts you at ease, like right here. And right now it's like, I think Josh is going into the fact, he says, but you ever see Deliverance? And that's where you're like, I wonder if some locals are messing around with these kids, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so they shot in total, like, I think like 80 hours of footage.
Oh, okay. 80 hours. Yeah.
And it was edited down. The first cut of the movie was 2.5 hours. And that first night scene with the noise, with the branches or the trees breaking or whatever. So apparently the first cut of that, it shows, I think, Heather insult. You kind of see it a little bit there where she's calling Mike out.
Yeah.
He keeps saying, I don't hear anything. I'm not getting out anymore. And she's like, what are you, pussy or a bitch or whatever? Apparently, like, she goes like over the top at the two guys in the original cut.
Oh, wow.
And this scene is supposed to be her kind of trying to patch things up and make jokes about the rain. And
yeah,
because apparently she went like crazy.
Yeah, that's, I mean, yeah, if that happened, you know, it's like, I think everyone's gone on a trip or something like that where, you know, there's been an argument or disagreement or something that kind of,
heck, I've had it just going to the mall and coming back home.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. You know, where it's you just, you know, you just kind of try to smooth things over, you know, and you know, it's right here. It's like, it's been 2 nights. And, you know,
right now they're heading back now. At this point, they're done shooting. They're trying to head back to their car to get back to civilization.
Yeah,
and this is the whole map fiasco starts happening.
Because, like, I mean, because I often wonder how did they get such natural reactions, but I think that from what I gather, like, they had kind of, you know, told Heather, like, this is your movie, this is your thing, which is why I wondered why she went crazy at the first nighttime scene. But apparently that was her kind of taking control in reality, where she was like, we were told to get the fuck out of the tent and record some shit if we hear anything.
Right.
Why are you standing at the tent? I'm already out. Let's go. So it wasn't even like an acted scene. She was actually being a crazy controlling bitch.
Right.
Because she was told she's supposed to.
I mean, like,
she's directing that.
It worked perfect.
Yeah, I mean, and they're all getting notes on what they want them to do and how they want them to act. I mean, at the end of the day, these are 3 actors right here.
Do you think Mike's note was to stay in the tent and create that? You know,
possibly
create her. Yeah. Because I mean, it's like, hey, tell her that they're supposed to come out and they'll follow you. Don't worry, it's part of the script. Hey, Mike, stay in there no matter what she says.
Well, I mean, and honestly, if you think about it, that's how a lot of reality shows go now.
True. Very true.
We went to high school with someone that was actually on Survivor, Mr. Adam Gentry, and he's told stories about how on Survivor, it's, you know, like they'd be doing one of those games, you know, like challenge games where you have one team versus another, and they'd be in the middle of the game, something would go wrong, and they just restart shit. You know,
wow.
I mean, it's,
reality ain't reality.
Exactly. But here we are, another night, And, these sounds, I remember the sounds would be when you loaded up the BlairWitchProject.com website, and those sound, you'd be like, oh, fuck. It was like, even now, if I go out in the woods or whatever, even if it's daylight, I hear the fucking sounds, man.
Yep.
And just you hear the snapping.
This even still, I'm not gonna like even watching this right now. I'm kind of getting like chills.
Yeah,
really. See,
I
like,
mean,
go ahead, man.
No, it's out of focus, and it's like I remember in the theater, I'm watching. I'm like, is that something behind that tree? Is that, what's like? Oh shit! It's a fucking leaf, right? But it's like you're just kind of looking. You're trying to see. It's like what's off in the distance. Is there's nothing. I mean, and it's what you don't see that's the problem, and it's perfect.
I mean, capturing the idea of being out in the woods all alone.
Yeah,
they got it because they literally were.
Yeah,
and I mean, that's all you need is just that little push into fear, and it's in there.
And I mean, those noises from the first night, it just sounded like maybe twigs and branches and stuff, but now it sounds like full-blown trees breaking.
Yeah.
And that always freaked me out. I was like, what the fuck is out there?
See, I would think a bear would have been my first, that would, I mean, I wouldn't be thinking anything supernatural. I would be thinking a bear is going to come and get me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it's almost like if someone was taking two rocks and banging them together really loud, I mean, if I heard those noises, I mean, I would just want to go,
Yeah, like Mike for me is the most relatable through the whole thing. I'm not sure if it was the last night, the previous night to this, where Josh says something about he heard an owl and something that sounded like a cackling. And then Mike butts in and says, I would shit my pants if I heard a cackling. And I was like, that would be me. I wouldn't even try and pretend.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and again, it's blackness. You're in the theater and you're surrounded by just blackness here. And, of course they dropped the 3 a.m. because guess what? Morning and daylight isn't coming anytime.
You still got about 3 more hours or more until the sun comes up.
Absolutely. And then there you go.
Okay, back to daylight. Yeah.
I mean, and this is the first time where it's like, oh, it's daylight, but then you're like, holy shit. 1, 2, 3 piles of rocks. That ain't good.
And they're not getting any sleep.
Yeah.
I mean, if they are getting any, it's maybe like just passing out on their feet. So I mean, it's like they're it's just complete torture.
And apparently those tree rock piles were like to signify, it was like a foreshadowing of the tree of them being dead.
Yes. Because again, the rocks were to symbolize Rustin Parr's victims, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there was a scene cut from the original cut of the movie as well, where Mike takes Josh, I think, aside. I think they pretend they're going to take a piss or something, and they're talking, and Mike tells Josh, he was like, yeah, I think she got out of the tent last night and set up those rocks.
Yeah.
As a, a thing for the camera or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And this is apparently the fact that he's kind of interrogating her here is the follow on from the scene where he's like, I think she's up to something.
Yeah.
I think she's doing this as part of the
doc, right?
Yeah, like getting us lost and doing these rock piles,
and here she is. She's lost the map, and it's like, it's wow. It's just you've got 3 different people that probably didn't hang out a whole lot, right? They're classmates at the end of the day,
They just seem like polar opposites, though,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, all right. So imagine, you're at your job and there are 2 other people that you may be friendly with, but you work different shifts or whatever. And your boss is like, all right, 3 of y'all go out in the woods and do this thing. I mean,
yeah,
you have one common goal, but
that you also have people spazzing. You have different egos. Yeah.
Right.
And if things start getting like real and scary, how are people going to react? And this is, I mean, this is not bad at all.
Now, this is the great thing about the disorientation, everything, so they keep talking about the map. Now you'd figure where they're at. He said, we've been walking this way for a whole fucking day, right?
South.
And that's the thing, is that you would think that maybe eventually they'd get to something. And this is where you start getting into the point where, are they in a time paradox? It's like, because
or are they moving and their surroundings are moving around them,
right?
Because like if you keep on going south in real life, you will eventually hit water. Yeah, you'll hit a stream, and then you just follow that. Absolutely. Because that's going to take you somewhere. But yeah, that's the thing. They just kept on going. They never found it. That's where I was like, oh, you went over 10 hours walking and never found anything. That's crazy.
Another thing that kind of, I guess, lends itself to the theory that there was no witch and the guys murdered her. So if you'll notice, she's the one who's supposed to have the compass, the map.
Yeah.
Supposed to be doing the directions. If you watch this, at no point is she leading them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even there a second ago, Mike was like, I don't know anything about the map. Mike is already gone and they're still arguing. And he's already decided, I'm walking this way, and he's just taken off. And a lot of people now, I don't think there's much to it, but it definitely, you could maybe twist it into, no, she's not actually directing anybody. They're just walking and they're leading her somewhere.
Yeah. I didn't think of that. Yeah.
And see, you get the water here, right?
Yeah. But but the thing is, did they keep on following it though?
No, they just crossed it. That's the thing.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Because eventually that'll take you to either a smaller or larger body of water.
Right. Yeah. Also, the boat from Camp Crystal Lake in Friday the 13th Part 8 made it to this stream of water too. I don't know.
It's how they connected the Atlantic to Camp Crystal Lake.
It floated in the background. Jason was driving it. Yeah, and you definitely get their ganging up on her. So I mean, again, that theory, Aaron, I mean, it still holds, and you know,
kind of tell here as well, like just the way Mike is shouting and they're like laughing and shit.
Yeah,
it's like I can see the argument for, the guys are up to something, but I can also see the argument to they've gotten to a point where it's like they're starting to realize how fucked they are. We have no idea where we're going, what's happening, or how we're going to get out of here.
Well, also too, it's Josh just went on a diatribe that, someone's going to come looking for me. My girlfriend's going to come looking for me. They're going to come looking for the dad. That is an expensive piece of equipment that's worth more than all three of us or whatever. It's like trying to come up with these rationalizations that they're not in trouble, right? I mean, they're like, it's modern day. How can we get fucking lost? It's like how it's impossible to happen, but guess what? It's happening. And it happens to people all the time, even now, it's
because I think it was in a bit earlier. Mike was getting really upset and saying, I mean, it's probably like the day before. He goes, "Hey man, I got to get back to work. I got to do this. I got to return all this stuff." And I was like, that's a really real moment because you're like, oh, especially if you borrowed something and you have to be at work. You're like, I can't be stuck out here. I got to get home. So yeah, that real tension really did sell that. Yeah.
And now, of course, we find out that Mike got rid of the map and all, it's everyone's pissed.
Funny as well, he actually wasn't given any notes about this map scene. he decided himself. He actually kicked the map into the creek. In like that wasn't something that didn't happen. He was sick of, I don't know, something to do with the map anyway. Like it wasn't part of the story. So he got pissed off and he kicked the map into the stream, and he thought the other guys would see it. He kind of done it as like a kind of a joke, I guess. And they didn't see it, so he didn't say anything. And then something was brought up about the map, and he just, I think, just off the cuff made up this whole like, I kicked the fucking thing into the creek. It was no use.
Now, see, I saw the Blair Witch Project in the theater about 3 or 4 times, over the course of its theatrical run originally. And I actually took non-horror fans with me that wanted to go. And some of them, like, afterwards would be like, oh my God, isn't it great? And they're like, they were just fucking people arguing about being lost in the woods, and it's like they didn't really get it, I guess in a sense, because watching this, it's so important to the film because it's character development, but it's also, I know a lot of people that are watching have been like, well, they should have, like you were talking about, John, found a body of water and just followed that or whatever. And it's like, these aren't survivalists here, man.
True.
They're film school students.
But again, if they kept on going south, they would have found something. 10 hours, on foot, they would have found it. But again, that's to show that something ain't right in these woods. You know?
Yeah, you kind of see the dynamic shift a couple of times as well. Like, I mean, like you guys said a second ago, it seemed like the 2 guys were against her. Yeah. And then they find out he kicks the map, and it seems like Josh and Heather are against Mike. And you're kind of, it kind of makes you wonder, it's like, are one of these guys the villains? Somebody here doing this, or are they all fucked because the Blair Witches
pitting them?
And then this kind of makes me think, then it's like, okay, so none of these are up to anything. It's the Blair Witch. What's all this stuff?
And seeing this is actually the part that gives me the chills, is because seeing that first one that's hairy looking, the first totem, the doll, because if you remember the story that the lady had told about, how the Blair Witch had hair, like
horse hair. Yeah.
Like, there you go, that fuzzy totem. And it's just, if you're out and you're lost in the woods, and it's what, day 3, right, for them, or day 4?
It's the day 3, day 4. Yeah.
But you're going through all this shit, and you come across this. I mean,
oh, you shit. This is
game over, man. Game over. It's, I mean, it's, Josh says, Jesus Christ, that's fucking creepy. Absolutely.
And they made that. I don't think that Stickman figure was like a kind of a joke, I think. And that hairy one, that was done by Eduardo Sanchez. He's a huge Star Wars fan, and he's a huge fan of Chewbacca. And that was done as a joke. They each took a go at making kind of their own version. And he made that one as a joke.
That's funny.
And they were laughing, I think, on the commentary track about how a lot of people mentioned that one.
Yeah.
And it was literally done as a joke.
And
this really started to freak me out here, where you can tell, like, Mike is like, I'm fucked.
I didn't feel bad for him because I was like, you kicked the map in the water.
That is true.
I was like, hey, man.
But I mean, that's the thing. It's like, you're out, it's daylight, you're out in the open. You're just going to yell at the top of your lungs, hoping that someone would hear you or whatever. Well, that's another thing, is that, the people that I took to go see this movie, we'd always go to dinner afterwards and just to talk about it and stuff like that. And some of the questions brought up was, would an airplane or a helicopter have gone over top or something or whatever? And again, that almost leads to the theory of time. The time travel or what have you.
See, I learned about that listening to your
Yeah.
podcast, Aaron.
Mm-hmm.
Way before, because when I was listening to the Eduardo Sanchez, that was a two-parter you had.
Yeah.
And I was like, huh, that's really interesting. I never knew that was supposed to be especially too, like with the documentaries of how they found the footage.
Mm-hmm.
It was under Rustin Parr's, the house where it shouldn't have been. Because if you go by history, there's no way it could have been at this level in the soil. So I was just like, oh, that's really interesting. I mean, I love all the backstory stuff on this. It's so immersive.
And this is where you're hearing the little kids too. And it's like, holy shit. I mean,
this scene used to freak me out.
Yeah.
The
I mean, because look,
here of them.
I mean, and this is again, iconic shot is about to come up, but the running. I mean, her in the white, and she's like, "Fucking God," and it's like, I mean, just the shaky camera and everything, and it's like I'm getting goosebumps kind of right now because I remember being in the theater seeing it because the tent was like shaking and everything, and she's like, "What was that?" And I believe that they actually had someone like almost dressed like a mummy kind of out there for her to see and say. So when she says, "What was that?" there was something there. It's just we don't see it on camera.
Yeah, and it's funny because I think the original intention was to have the audience see it as well. So it was one of the team dressed in white long johns. He had a white stocking over his head, and he was running alongside of Heather, just off shot.
Yeah.
And the intention, I think, was to have the audience see him, but he'd be kind of distorted or blurred.
Right.
And they just felt like that actually works way better. The fact that you can't see anything, because now you just leave it up to the audience to figure out what it is or what it looked like.
Yeah.
I mean, in here, it's pitch black, and you can just imagine they're just the three of them just huddled up together. Just.
Oh yeah, they said, "Did you hear a baby?" Yeah. Did you hear a baby out here? Like,
there's no fun.
And that always freaked me out was the fact that it was like kids and babies. I was like, why the hell?
Right.
Because there's nothing creepier or more fucked up than like Innocence Lost, especially like the macabre with children. It should not be a thing. Like when I hear the word baby coffin, I go, whoa, that is a fucked up thing to hear and a fucked up imagery. So yeah, it totally makes sense to do that in a horror film. And then this, it just sells it even more.
I mean, and they're still in the same spot.
Yeah.
And it's, and look, I mean,
they're disheveled.
Yeah. Everything's been ransacked. I mean, they still have their equipment.
So see right there, you can see a broken stick figure.
Yeah.
And that's something that they gloss over, but that's alluding to Heather had actually stolen one of those stick figures from an earlier scene.
Yeah.
They bring it up, I think, in a while. They're like, that's that shit you took. You took the totem, and now look.
Yeah.
Wow. See, I'm seeing this in a whole different way with you guys.
Sure. Well, I mean, and that's again the did Heather bring this upon them? It's another one of those things that you can kind of look at. And of course, the smart thing, which every found footage movie you watch, there's always like that one character. Why do you still have that fucking camera on? Or, turn that camera off. We're in real trouble here. But what the Blair Witch Project does perfectly with it is just the fact that, Heather explains that it's the filter, that if she stops filming, then she might lose her life, that they might die.
It's losing control.
Right.
Another thing I never noticed until I listened to it this week. So there's an intentional thing done with the sound throughout the movie. So if you listen to it from the start, when they go into the woods, you can hear birds chirping, crickets, different things, bugs and whatever. And as they go through the night, the different nights into the next day, you hear less and less of everything.
Oh,
that's
till
smart.
we get towards the end. There's like this weird kind of just like a hum. There isn't any actual. Yeah, you can't hear birds or you can't hear anything.
Wow.
I never even knew that they drowned it out as they get deeper and deeper into this.
That's good editing
Yeah.
to work on you psychologically. That's really good.
Absolutely. I mean, and again, Mike is the audience kind of, I think, in some ways, you know, that's, I mean, real sincere. I mean, again, as phenomenal and as popular as this movie is, I mean, when I saw it, I was like, and I found out that it was fake and all of that, I was like, they need Academy Awards, man. This is groundbreaking. This is, you know, but you know, it's you know, you want to give it all the awards and stuff, but I mean, I think, you know, you can have awards and stuff like that, but you know, Blair Witch is it's an iconic film.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, here you have Josh just hanging his head. I mean, they're every day becoming more and more defeated. I mean, the look on Josh's face right there, just
like in one of the documentaries, weren't they like talking to like two guys who said they went out in the woods looking? He goes, yeah, we never came across anybody, and it would have been during the time they were out here.
Yeah.
So like they never crossed paths.
Mm-hmm.
Which again, what you said earlier leads going to the theory that they're no longer in their time period. They're no longer in the present.
Get a little bit of the madness because we get some loud, horrible singing here, you know.
And it makes me wonder. It's like, again, it's that thing where they've created this weird dynamic of a lot of people think, you know, it's a sign of them going crazy and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Then other people say, oh no, they're trying to fuck with Heather's mind and like freak her out and have her thinking. Because you can see here, she kind of even starts to break where she's like, no, this isn't the same place. This can't be the same place.
Right.
Because this is where they came in at, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh man.
No, Mike, it's not the same log. Yep, it's the same log. No, it's not. You know, and it's I mean, it's one of those things where you're like, you know, you feel like you're making headway towards something, but you're just only going deeper back into where you came from.
Yeah.
You know, it's
like it's like you're walking into like you're surrounded by like four sides and they're all mirrors. Everything looks the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then you're like, huh? I just came back to the same point. I'm in a time loop, you know?
Well, so if you do think that, you know, Josh and Mike are kind of pulling this con on Heather, she had to have done some really fucked up shit, you know. I mean,
because if it is them doing that, well, I mean, that would mean that they're both psychotic. You know, that would mean Josh is the mastermind, and Mike is definitely the guy, like the lackey sidekick to do that. Because I mean, to do something like this, lure somebody out here and make it this elaborate. But I mean, they're already using her fear and the whole idea of the documentary about a witch in the woods. I mean, it's a compelling idea. Yeah. And if that was truly the real story, it's a completely different movie. You know?
I love the fact that I guess it was put together in such a way that it leaves all these questions. Like, I don't think that was ever the intention, but it's just kind of fun to talk about the fact that people have sat back and kind of made this other movie. Like this here, for example, a lot of people think this ties into the Josh and Mike theory. Yeah. Because it's like he's recording a snuff movie. He's like recording the victim, and then you'll hear in a second Mike takes the first watch, which everybody's always suspicious of. Yeah. When they go to sleep at night.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, I mean, and it's, you know, Josh just interrogating Heather, you know, and just, kind of dangling that whole care. I want to make movies.
This bit is great. I love this bit.
Yeah. Here's your motivation. You're lost. You're angry. Oh, yeah.
That's the bit where he says you took one of the trinkets and now the witch is leaving shit at your door.
Yeah. Oh, she ran after.
That would be just like, oh.
Yeah. We walked for 15 hours today. We ended up in the same place. Yes. That's your motivation. Man.
It's like you've damned us.
Yeah.
You put a mark on us.
Yeah. It's just, whew. I mean, and
to quote Larry David, pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, but who hasn't really, I guess, been in that kind of an argument before?
I don't think I have. Not this severe. I don't think I've been in that. I can't say I've been in that.
Yeah.
I've been in arguments, but
right.
Yeah, I mean, but not that because he's taunting. He's really trying to get under the skin.
Yeah. Well,
I never picked up on that before, where he says, "Are you going to write us a happy ending?"
Yeah. It's like it's up to you. Put us into this mess, you get us out of it, kind of thing, right? I mean, just
like even here, she's like mending one of their pantses or something. I think she's like sewing something together, and you can tell she kind of like. I think that's like her character's coping mechanism is to like convince herself and them that it's all good, to like keep control or.
Right.
I think you're right. I think it's all about because she's keeping herself occupied, and it's controlling something. It's fixing something. She can't fix the situation they're in, but she's sewing up something to fix that at least.
And Josh saying we're pretty much sleeping where we were sleeping last night, and that's pretty fucking scary, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And here we go. It's like talking about who wants a cheeseburger, and it's like they start talking about those
creature comforts.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd be like, shut up.
Yes.
I've been eating bark for 2 days because we ran out of rice-a-roni.
I would have ate the fucking mat, but Mike threw it out.
Yeah, it had some parchment in it. I think there's some protein in there.
I think towards the end of filming as well, they were only giving the actors an apple and a water every day.
That'll do it.
In like the last day or two, I think, to really like fuck with them and have them grouchy and aggressive.
Yeah.
Wow, they were they like psychology students? Daniel and Eduardo. I mean, I wouldn't doubt because I'm just like that sounds like psychology experiments that lack of sleep, lack of food, all that kind of stuff.
Well, there was one where they took college students and they had half of them
as prisoners and half as guards.
Yeah.
It started with a Z. I forgot. I know what you're talking about. I forgot the name of the experiment, but yeah, the people who became guards became totalitarian.
And of course, Josh is now gone.
Yes.
They can't find Josh. And, which kind of, I guess Aaron can play into that theory. Another theory, I had heard is that, because Heather had taken a trinket and was very much into witchcraft, that she was helping try to conjure the Blair Witch, right?
Well, wasn't Josh's, all his stuff was covered and theirs wasn't?
Yep.
So he'd been marked by whatever the entity is. Yeah. Man, that's creepy.
Yeah. Yeah, the nails and just
some lava would clean that up.
It's just a lot of so many of these shots are just I mean it's like this one here of Mike, bottom left hand corner. I mean, defeat,
Yeah, and it's funny to hear everybody talk about the movie now and how many unintentional like great moments were in it.
Mm-hmm.
Like even this year now, they start to hear shit in the daytime.
Yeah,
which it's like further descending in. Like before, it was like, okay, we know it comes at night.
There
This
you
shit
go.
happens at night. Now it's starting to happen. But is that them?
Yeah.
Are they tired? Are they exhausted? Are they freaking out? Or is there actually, is something happening?
Here's the even crazier theory. What if the noises are them on the other side?
And you know what? It's funny. I had seen something about that. Someone had come up with this, I guess, version of the story where they had this strange time travel, several dimension thing, and it was like they were crossing over their own paths.
Right. They're just like a few steps ahead, but existing in the same like literally going in a circle, but always on the polar opposites of each other, but just enough to hear each other, just enough to be like right on the outside, on the cusp of each other. Oh man, that's crazy. If that is even, if that was even like, but that's the one, like you were saying before, I know I'm repeating it, but that's what's really cool about this movie is just all the different theorizing.
Yes.
That, and it's because it's, they give you just enough to make you go, what am I watching? What am I looking at?
Yeah.
And then your imagination just goes with it.
I think that's why this is one of my favorite movies, is just because, like, even from just talking to you guys for the last little while now, I've even heard things I'm like, oh yeah, I never thought about it that way, actually.
Yeah.
I never thought about that before. Maybe it is that.
Oh, they're hearing screaming.
Yeah. And it's
freaky.
And it's, and that's definitely, it's Josh out there screaming, you know.
And to hear a man scream like that as well, it just makes it even.
Funny, I just, that because at my job I won't say any names, but someone had injured themselves. So not a coworker, but we had to call an ambulance in just the other day, like 2 days ago. And I think the person might have either broke their leg or broke their hip, and hearing, like you said, a grown man screaming and pleading, no, please, stop. So you're like, whoa, it's unnerving. When you just said, I went, oh yeah, I just listened to that 2 days ago from somebody. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. Well, again, just whenever I watch it, I think about how I felt when I was in the theater, and it's like, again, it's dark. And so with it being dark, obviously your other senses are kind of a little heightened. And so you hear so much, and
you're on alert.
It was a small theater. So, the sound was just immersive, and you hear him just crying out, and you're like, shit. And it's that light again. It's like you're looking, any other movie, like you'd see, some kind of maybe monster come out at some point,
a blur of something. Yeah. Because like just watching this last week, I didn't feel really any of the scares because I watched it by myself, middle of the day. And I'm so far removed from when it first came out and the hype of it, if you will, the mania, the Blair Witch mania.
Yeah.
Because like when it first came out, no one knew if it was real. Is it? It was almost like that, like the Richard Gere rumor. I heard this. So like but rewatching it right now with you guys, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm getting that. And on the second watch of it, because there's just so much going on now, instead of, because before it was just nothing. Now I'm seeing more.
I feel like as well, I would be up like the second daylight hits, and I would just pack that shit up and I'd be gone.
Yeah.
Just like, I don't care how tired I am, let's just keep walking. I don't care.
But there you get a gift right here, right outside. Mike is asleep, Heather's alone, but she's still narrating what's going on, right? And it's not just the narration, but it's also the breath that you hear. On captions it's saying Heather,
gasping with fright.
Exactly. But it's, you kind of hear it. You're in the point of view. You've got this gift, this bundle of twigs, and it's
tied up with a piece of flannel.
Yeah. And here we go. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest right here, right? Rocking back and forth. I mean,
yeah, Mike's lost it. Oh, he found some cigarettes though. Good for him.
Yeah. Means we're still alive because we're still smoking.
Like Cheech and Chong.
Yeah.
Little fact. Blair Witch Project was the 10th highest grossing film in 1999 in the US.
Mm-hmm.
So coming out like pretty much almost August, because it was July 30th. And has earned the reputation of becoming a quote sleeper hit at the time.
Well, I think we know what movie would have been number one
in 99.
Yeah, The Phantom Menace, right?
Oh, you're right. Yeah. I didn't think of that.
When she's opening up this bundle, it's like, again, you're looking, what the fuck what's in there? What's any kind of clues? And you see she's saying it's full of blood, and you're gonna get that loud kind of and you're again trying to look and see, move down, camera, move down, and you a little bit right there. Oh, what is that? Is it a fucking tooth? Is it a heart? I don't know what the fuck it is.
It's supposed to be bits of his hair,
yeah,
blood, and some of his teeth, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have a theory about his teeth, let alone just the reason why he was screaming the night before. His teeth were being extracted. But remember his necklace?
Yeah.
He had that tooth on there. Oh, were you going to mention that?
No, but I was just thinking of it here.
Because I'm wondering, I was like, oh, you have it too? Well, how about that? Let's take one ourselves.
But also, too, it's like, is it his tongue? Oh, well.
Oh, I think it is supposed to be a tongue. Yeah. Oh, man.
I mean, again, the very little that they show in this is...
That's the only blood you see, correct? In the whole thing.
Yeah.
Oh, well, let me take that back.
Oh.
They'll be later. The prints.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's probably the most graphic scene in the entire thing.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, I think for without language, this probably might have got a PG-13.
Sure.
You know?
I mean, again, it's like, even watching it now, it's like, what is that? Who does that? What's in there?
That's some good acting she's doing right there. The freaking out.
But I mean, again, they didn't have prior knowledge about this shit. I mean, and imagine, again, even though you're acting and you're in a movie, what the hell, man?
Well, did they know they were going to lose Josh?
No, because originally it was going to be Mike.
Really?
Yes.
Elaborate. Inquiring minds want to know.
As Aaron takes a big giant gulp of his water that looks like vodka.
No, it's just water.
Yes.
I have no wine left.
But so, Aaron, you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, so I think the original intention was to have Mike disappear and leave Josh and Heather together. But because they had so much friction between the two of them in reality. So a lot of the footage that they cut out involved kind of what we were talking about earlier. Josh and Heather kind of constantly this friction.
At loggerheads.
And it was playing out in the movie, and it was kind of affecting the direction they wanted
production.
Because those two characters weren't actually supposed to be so against each other, I guess.
Yeah.
So they switched it up the day before. They just decided, they were like, right, okay, we're going to take Josh out. We're not going to tell the other two. And they left him a note to say tonight, open the tent when everyone goes to sleep and look for the flashlight. And they pulled him out without any prior knowledge. And when they first get out and see that bundle outside the door, the first time, that was actually shot twice, which is one of the few scenes in the movie that was shot 2 times. The first time they got out, Heather picked that up and threw it away. And they had to actually come out and call the safe word or whatever and say, no, you need to investigate. There. You need to get back in the tent and open that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now we're looking at what is probably one of the most iconic shots of this movie.
Yeah. Hey, this is
Yeah.
You had this. Well, before we started recording, you had the same shot earlier.
Yes.
Aaron.
Actually.
But
God, I wish I had footage of that.
This is the scene that Scary Movie, you know, parodied
with Sherry O'Terry.
Yeah. I mean, gosh, there were so many parodies of this. There was the Blair Warner project about, an actress. There was Pauly Shore did a parody of it, because obviously a lot of people, there were people that had VHS cameras and stuff, so it was easy to make a parody of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
This was before YouTube.
Well, I mean, after Pulp Fiction came out, remember like Mad TV first name that they were doing, and Forrest Gump, so I mean, anything is huge like that, is gonna get. I mean, oh my god, hold on, is there a Blair Witch porn parody?
Oh yes, there is.
I didn't even know.
But this, in my opinion, deserved some kind of nod, because Jesus, dude, and right there you see the eyes and you hear it's coming. I can't do anything to stop it. It's more terrifying. You're pulled in to this, and that, and the thing is that Host this year was such a huge hit. But I mean, there are some shots very much like this. Like there's one of Emma that she has the blanket over just one eye on her camera that is so reminiscent of it. And there's parody, but there's paying an homage, and Host did it right. But now whenever you see that kind of shot, or you think Blair Witch Project, you think that shot.
The fact that that was all ad-libbed by Heather as well. That wasn't actually she got no script for that, and that shot was another unintentional shot. Originally she thought she had her entire face.
Yeah.
Right, but you can't.
And it works out. Like, it works out so much better, I think.
It's so iconic. It was the poster.
Mm-hmm.
That dark background, and then the tops of trees for the woods.
There was actually something right before this where they had the compass out, and it was something that I had seen that I never actually thought about. So the compasses don't work right, which a lot of people think alludes to the Blair Witch and this whole time dimension thing. But a lot of people mention the fact that a lot of the sound equipment that Mike has use magnets. This was part of the
reason why they were
they gave her the compass on purpose, and his equipment was fucking the
compass up. How about that to be a strong magnet?
Well, I mean, and see, here you are, and here's the house.
Yep, the Rustin Parr house.
And it's at this point when you know that shit's about to go down. I mean, you've been walking out in the middle of the woods all these days and getting lost, and you come across this.
Now, had they established in the beginning of the movie with I guess when they're talking to that older gentleman in black and white film, or what had said that the Rustin Parr house had burned down? Had they established that, or was that in the documentary?
All I remember is they talked about how, Rustin Parr, killed the kids and walked down to the town. So that's another thing too. If Rustin Parr walked into town, they're not that far from the town, right?
Well, I mean, like 5 miles, 4 miles, but this house is not supposed to be here. It was burned down by the locals, right?
I'm pretty sure that it was that information may have been put into the documentary.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
But I mean, House of Horrors.
I've seen a few houses like this out in Spotsy.
Yeah.
because that old plaster and
Mhm.
yeah, because I mean, only plaster walls have that kind of backing in it. Ugh, it was terrible.
That kind of lends itself as well to some of the storyline in Blair Witch 2, which is not really connected with this too much.
Yeah.
But there's a scene where they go to the ruins of the Rustin Parr house. But
Yeah,
there's this giant tree in the middle of it, which it wouldn't have been possible.
Yeah.
For that tree to be there in the center.
And you see the handprints. I mean, and I'm in the theater. My heart is racing. I mean, it's like, what the fuck are you gonna see? What's next? You know, and like the boots right there. You're like, what the hell? And then it's Mike, and it's, you know, Mike is just amped up, and just I hear him downstairs. I'm gonna go save him. Come on, you know, and it's just.
If I was Heather, I would be freaking out if he ran off like that.
Yeah.
Well, isn't she screaming? Like,
yeah.
What?
Yeah.
And it's funny as well. Another thing that I didn't realize, they use the sound from Mike and the footage from Heather, so it creates distance in the sound.
Yeah.
Because you can hear.
Yeah, because I felt because she felt so far away. Yeah.
That was done intentionally.
Oh,
yeah.
Mike's down.
I mean, and while they're running through, I mean, right there, you see, look, like the writing on the wall.
Yeah, the runes. Yeah.
So they're a thing called Foothark runes, which are actually real. They became ancient Hebrew runes. They were used between the 2nd and the 8th century. They're actual runes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and here it comes. Here it comes. Yeah. No. Oh,
that ending, dude.
Yeah. Man. Yeah. Just seeing him in the corner.
And I don't know if you guys have ever seen, they actually reshot or not reshot, they shot 4 alternate endings.
I heard about that, but I never saw them.
So one of them is the same kind of setup. They come down and it's one, I think Mike is hanging from the roof of the basement. There's another one where he's, I think, impaled on a stick figure.
Oh, wow.
There's all stick figures hanging around him. There's another one. I can't remember them all, but honestly, after a while, like when I heard about them, I was like, oh, that sounds so much cooler. No, they don't work at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I seen them, like even the one with the stick figure, like I love the figure and it's cool and it's creepy, but to see it just would have made everything so tacky. I don't know. I just like after that whole setup and feeling like it was somewhat real and how realistic the acting was, to go from that then to like some weird, tacky kind of horror movie trope.
Yeah, a trope, exactly. Because it's like, oh, that's how they did it. Okay.
Because I think the studio forced them to go back and shoot them, and then when they sat down and looked at them all, they were like, "Yeah, no, just go with your original ending," because
they loved how ambiguous it was. Because it was just like, what is he? He's just standing there, but yeah, he's just standing there. He shouldn't be.
Well, the thing is, you see it, and the first thing that popped in my head when I first saw it was the story of Rustin Parr making the kids standing in the corner, and you're like, "Fuck."
Yeah,
it's. I mean, it's so unbelievably creepy. And then, of course, you know, the camera goes to the side and you don't see anything. You know, they talk about finding the footage and, you know, putting it all together. But man, it's like you've gone on this journey with these people, and, you know, obviously it just ends like that.
Yeah.
And I remember the house lights coming up, and you're like, I mean, the theater was silent. You know, I mean, there was no snickering. There was no, you know, wow, that was great. There was no clapping.
Hey, let's go to the car. Yeah.
It was, I mean, people were stunned. I mean, and man, it's still, it elicits that response, from me now. Now, granted, not as scared as I was the first time.
Yeah.
But man, what a
you've rode this roller coaster a few times. Yeah.
Exactly. What a great movie to just geek out about, right?
I had fun.
I definitely feel like that. Like, and I do that as well. Like, I fall into the lore an awful lot behind things, and I'm actually halfway through, maybe a little bit more, reading a book called "The Confessions of Rustin Parr," which was actually written by the guy who wrote the book that came out around the time of the movie. I can't
The
remember his
dossier.
name. Yeah, I can't remember the guy's name. D.A. Stern, something like that.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, he wrote like I guess a follow-up story-ish, and it involves some of the characters that you've actually heard of mentioned in the Blair Witch. And it's basically the premise for it is there is I guess when you're given the death penalty, do they send in like a prison chaplain or whatever to see you the night before you die?
Yeah.
Give you your last rites or whatever shit. Apparently, when this priest goes in to see Rustin Parr, this book is the story of what Rustin Parr told him really happened.
The true confession.
Interesting.
Yes, which isn't that he killed 7 kids and that was it because he was nuts. Somebody else killed him, but there's something to do with the Blair Witch, and
interesting.
This book is like the story of that, and I'm about halfway through, and it's one of those things I want to give it the actual time because now I'm like super immersed in it.
Oh yeah,
and yeah, it's interesting, and it makes me wonder. When I talked to Eduardo, he talked a lot about doing a prequel, or he seems very excited. And I'm not sure if this is something. I think it's something that's in probably talks or conversation somewhere to be able to do a TV show, because he thinks that they could move between time periods.
Sure.
Like they could do a prequel season, they could do a sequel season, they could do branch into different.
A season happening during all of this in 90. It's supposed to happen in 94, or is it 90?
And I think because I asked him, like, what would your ideas be? And he's like, I don't really want
to
divulge.
Yeah, so that makes me think that there's probably conversations that go on behind the scenes a lot.
Sure.
Well, they had apparently from my research they were talking. Well, I think Eduardo had said he wants to do a TV show. It was back in 2018, I think. But I guess trying to get the green light, trying to get money, and then the pandemic probably didn't help with that either.
Now, Aaron, you had the good luck to actually interview Eduardo Sanchez. You're remastering those episodes for re-release, aren't you?
Yeah. So originally when I put it up, it was like there was an issue with my audio at the time, and it was like a super long episode as well. So I've cleaned up the audio a bit now, and I've split them into 2 parts. So I'm going to repost them probably very soon, within a week or 2.
Oh, nice.
Just so it's a little bit easier to listen back to or whatever.
I remember listening originally when it was released, and yeah, it's a great interview, and I'm looking forward to re-listening to it. Obviously, because some people, when they talk about their their most famous work, they get tired of it. Eduardo does not. He gushes about it, and loves it. And, in no way does he seem like he's tired of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely felt that, and I wasn't sure because he was my it's crazy to say that, like somebody who I would consider like an idol of mine was my first ever interview, and to try and I guess in a way bluff my way through the interview to sound like I knew a lot about the Blair Witch, but I knew very little about interviewing or podcasting at the time.
Really?
And for him to take 3 hours, 4 hours, and like I said before, me and him have actually kept in touch, and like he
Nice.
sent me some packages and stuff. He's sending me a signed Blair Witch poster.
Oh, geez.
And it's just so I can really tell like that he's also like a fan of movies, but he cares about the community as well. And
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the way he put it to me was, look, it's 20 something years later, and people like you were still reaching out to me about this. How could I not talk about it? And how could I not, give the same energy that I get? Like, this has afforded me my entire lifestyle.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, and like, I guess he he said like the horror community is extremely passionate when they like something.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I mean, it feels like at this rate within the horror community anyway, you've nearly got a cult following for anything. I'm sure any of us right now could mention a movie and you can find your group who will know everything about it and all the little things and extra things and merch and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm looking around at my DVDs and going, oh yeah, I'm sure there's a forum on Reddit for that or something like that. Yeah, definitely.
Well, he's definitely been able to maintain a career. Of course, there was a segment, A Ride in the Park from VHS2, which is actually one of my favorite segments out of all three of the VHS movies that they did. The movie Exists. Have you seen that one?
I have not.
Yeah,
you
the
haven't?
Bigfoot movie.
The Bigfoot movie.
Yeah.
Again, pretty good. Returning to the woods, so to speak. He directed a few episodes of From Dusk Till Dawn, the series.
Oh, cool.
A couple episodes of Lucifer, Supernatural, Queen of the South, Nancy Drew. Which Supernatural, he did 5 episodes of Supernatural. Which would make sense why he would have the idea to take the Blair Witch to TV.
Serialized, yeah.
Absolutely. Now, of course, Blair Witch came out, lit the world on fire. It was a phenomenon. And the sequel is Book of Shadows.
Yep. Not a bad horror movie if they hadn't called it, I guess, Blair Witch 2.
I think it was very much a meta Blair Witch kind of thing. It's almost kind of like, remember the Brady Bunch movie where it's like, hey, we take the Brady Bunch, but it's modern times, right?
Yeah. Or Texas Chainsaw 2.
Right.
They just went gonzo with it because we can't top the first.
I think that's how Book of Shadows was. Kind of hokey if you go back and watch it now, but I mean, every now and again I break out and I watch it.
Yeah, that's something that I'd actually like to do this again for the second one at some point.
That would be fun to revisit.
I just think that I have a weird love-hate relationship with that movie. I kind of have gotten more appreciation for it when I hear about what he was trying to do originally. He didn't want to remake or add to the lore per se in the sense of change anything. And I do think, like you said, it was kind of like a meta thing. But then if you listen to his director's commentary on the movie, he kind of just shits on the whole experience. He was like, no, I really wanted to do this, and this was great for me, and I had this really cool idea, and we were going to make it like a topic on the power of these like sensationalist ideas and whatever, like how things take off and how they can maybe manifest themselves in reality. But then the studio got involved and went, no, we kind of want a teen slasher, and we're going to get rid of your score. We're going to put Marilyn Manson on the intro. I want blood. We want like titties. I want this. I want that. I don't want your movie. We want this other movie. But we're also going to leave in all your really deep and thoughtful, all these little Easter eggs he put in.
Yeah.
But we're just going to put other shit that doesn't make any sense in there.
We're going to exploitation
I can't
with
remember
the deeper meaning.
Yeah, I can't remember the guy's name. He's made a lot of documentaries. Joe, he done that recent one on Netflix, the Cecil Hotel one.
Joe Berlinger.
Yes, there we go.
Yes. And of course, Eduardo and Daniel wrote the movie, right? Kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
Yeah, they wrote and directed. It says,
Mhm.
yeah.
But I mean, it was very much a Hollywood gets a hold of something and Hollywoods it, you know?
Yeah, it's that idea of like, hey,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we're doing a horror movie, but let's make it so everybody wants to go see it.
Right.
That doesn't work, especially when there's a clear idea.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost, I mean, in a way, it's almost like a Twilight Zone or a Tales from the Crypt kind of feel to it, vibe to it.
Oh, even has like those, remember
Right.
those like those 90s movies? After Scream.
Right.
Had one of those because everyone had their part they played. They had you had the goth girl, you had these different archetypes.
Exactly.
You know?
So, and then of course, down the road we would get the Comic-Con announcement that just came out of nowhere of the announcement of Blair Witch going back to its found footage roots. Came out 2016?
Mm-hmm.
And they made the announcement at Comic-Con and they were like, this shit's coming out in a couple months.
That was I have to say,
yeah,
that kind of a little bit recaptured my like,
yeah,
they've done it again, they've
yes.
surprised everybody.
Yeah. And
then it did surprise me with how shit it was.
Yes, it was not.
I actually prefer number 2 over that, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And just on number 2 as well. So when I talked to Eduardo and I've talked to Dan, not through a call or anything. So they had actually, the only thing, I don't know why they're credited in the movie, because now I don't know if they want to say this, but I don't think they're too impressed. They're credited as, the reason they're credited is because they use characters that they created, but the story actually has nothing to do with them.
Mm-hmm.
But they're still credited as like writers or whatever of the movie.
Right.
And I don't think they really like
probably name recognition for the movie. So it would be like, oh, well, so same guys from the first one, right? No.
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah.
That's probably it, yeah.
It's one of those things where, it wound up being in kind of in development kind of hell, because, I think it was around 2000, like 2009, 2010, when, Daniel and Eduardo were talking about that they, wanted to do a sequel to the original. And of course, Lionsgate, had the rights and everything. And so it was kind of like one of those things where it just kind of, the studio doesn't want to trust the original guys. Right. And then they were like, well, we're not going to do your thing, we'll do our thing, kind of thing. And so the studio just kind of tossed it aside, and there was this movie being made called The Woods, and it's like, they're like, surprise bitches, it's the Blair Witch. And it was written by Simon Barrett and directed by Adam Wingard, and it was very, very disappointing.
What did they try to do it like the first one? They try to do it like a found footage. They're out in the woods doing the exact same thing, or
well, it's Heather's younger brother, and he gets a video on YouTube, and is like, I need to go to the woods and look for her. Right?
How long after?
I think it's set in real time. Yeah, I don't. It's weird because he's like,
yeah.
I think, does he think he sees Heather in the footage or something? He's like, oh, that's my sister, guys. We have to like make a documentary about this.
Oh, that's sorry. I'm like, that sounds terrible.
Right. And you know what? When you first look at it, you're kind of like, okay, if I put my horror movie cap on and kind of forget about any real logic here,
I'll suspend disbelief.
Yeah, I can kind of get with this, but it just gets, I don't know, for me. And I had read somewhere as well, like apparently like the original script was like super gory, and they spent 5 years putting this shit together.
Yeah.
I like, and then that was the result. And like the other thing that didn't work for me was 90% of the movie was shot on a soundstage.
That loses the whole thing.
Also doesn't work because they were apparently this was because they were filming it secretly. They couldn't go and film there. They couldn't do this and they couldn't do that. Now again, that may be the case, but it just
and it's,
I mean, those are shoes way too hard to fill. It just is.
And the premise of it is, I mean, all right, to spoil it, the video that they see is actually the video of them, and he thinks it's Heather, but it's not Heather. It's actually one of the females that goes with him into the woods to look for Heather, right, Aaron? So it's one of those things that it's like they're
dumb.
Well, right, but I mean, it's I mean, it's one of those things where it's nothing. It's there's no story. It's just let's just
let's just use this name.
Yeah.
To make a horror movie.
And it's funny because when you listen to is it Adam Wingard or whatever and Simon Barrett talk about it, they talk about it with like such respect for the lore and the story, and we want to add this to it, we want to add that, and then like
they're not adding anything.
Yeah, like there's so many weird scenes where they get to the house, and it just becomes some weird, like it's like fucking Universal Studios haunted house.
Yes, yes.
These flashing lights, and it's like a haunted attraction that they're in, and there's. So this is something I didn't know. Now I don't believe this. I believe they backtracked afterwards. But so you see that weird creature thing that looks like it's on stilts or whatever.
Yeah.
So I genuinely think that was supposed to be the Blair Witch. But apparently when they got so much shit about that, they backtracked and went, no, that's not actually the Blair Witch. That's a victim of the Blair Witch. It isn't actually her. So don't worry about that. But even in the movie, the woman that played that is credited as Blair Witch. So, yeah.
See, I think the whole idea of just showing the witch is
that already kills it.
Yeah, like that's dumb. Maybe what the witch might have looked like before, but not what it is now.
Right.
Because that just it just completely rips away any kind of the mythos. Man.
100%. John, usually on our watch parties, you give us a little insight from critics.
Do I? And I have them tonight. I looked up Rotten Tomatoes. They gave it an 86%. And then I don't know if this is for critics, because I think that's like for fans. And I think for critics, it was 7.7 out of 10.
Yeah.
Now, this is when it first came out in 99. This is from Entertainment Weekly. Magazine gave it the grade of B, saying, as a horror picture, the film may not be much more than a cheeky game, a novelty with the cool, blurry look of an avant-garde artifact. But as a manifestation of multimedia synergy, it's pretty spooky. So that's not a bad one. Could you hear that? I do apologize if that was loud. Todd McCarthy of Variety said the film was, quote, an intensely imaginative piece of conceptual filmmaking that also delivers the goods as a dread-drenched horror movie. The Blair Witch Project puts a clever modern twist on the universal fear of the dark and things that go bump in the night. I go along with that one.
Yeah.
Peter Travers from Rolling Stone magazine called it, quote, a groundbreaker in fright that reinvents scary for the new millennium. Remember when everyone's throwing millennium around there? This for the new millennium. Yes.
And, he wasn't wrong because, again, this was the movie that essentially gave birth to found footage.
For today, yes, definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because, what would have been the next found footage movie?
Well, so I'm not sure, but
I know I'm just throwing the curveballs at everyone right now.
But
Google.
but I remember the impact that the Blair Witch had on the promotional material for Wes Craven's New Nightmare, where you get Fred on the poster Freddy Krueger with his the black trench coat, saying scarier than any old witch, right?
Yeah.
And even as
and he even went, go check out my website.
And even Mr. Doyle's favorite Halloween film, Resurrection.
Oh, such a good movie.
Yes.
Dangertainment.
Implemented found footage into it as well. So
see, that always reminded me of that TV show on MTV, Fear. Remember that? Yeah, they had the cameras on. And, I went to a haunted house.
But the influence of Blair Witch, especially with the big horror icons, was felt right away and kind of injected into
had to do it. Why not?
Yeah.
What'd you find, Aaron?
No, I was just going to say the fact that it created a masterpiece like Halloween Resurrection is that's enough for me. I think like a lot of people forget about that movie was so bad that people actually forget that they tried to go down like a found footage Michael Myers route, which
in retrospect would be pretty cool. I know
it's not a bad idea. When you see it, when you think of it on the page, you're like, oh, that sounds okay.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
the execution was just
it's a flavor. Flavorful.
Had the entire movie been found footage though?
Yeah.
It does this weird and it's edited together so weird.
Right.
It like switches without any real. At no point does it ever feel like you're watching found footage.
Right.
Yeah.
It's almost like they put it through a filter. They make it look like it's VHS.
Yeah, and then it has like the it's found footage vision when it has like the border, like you're looking through the screen, the finder. I got another critique. This is from Roger Ebert. I think all the Roger Ebert critiques I brought up have always been negative.
That's why I sighed when you mentioned that.
Roger Ebert gave the film a total of 4 stars and called it, quote, an extraordinarily effective horror film. I was shocked when I read this. I went, whoa. But I think, honestly, I mean, I'm speaking for the man, even though he's gone, and I could be completely wrong, but he always seemed to always shit on horror movies. I think the only one he probably didn't was Silence of the Lambs, because no one called it a horror movie. But I think he got on the bandwagon and was like, oh, I can't go after this because look at what it did. Not like what it produced later, all the the parody stuff like that, but like this idea that garnered so much popularity and so much money. So I think he did the safe bet and didn't go against it.
Yeah, that makes sense, because I was expecting it to be like, he said it was a pile of trash.
He said to the kids in the when he said about Nothing But Trouble, hey kids, could you keep on talking louder? I like your conversation better than the movie. Oh, go ahead.
No,
I got some more. Now here come some negative ones.
Okay.
Andrew Saris of the New Yorker Observer deemed it, quote, overrated, as well as a rendition of, quote, the ultimate triumph of Sundance scam. Make a heartless home movie, get enough critics to blurb in near unison, quote, scary, and watch the suckers flock to be fleeced. Wow. Slow news day for this critic, I think.
Hate is gonna hate.
Right.
Yes.
Now, this one I found, because I've never heard of this publication, a critic from the Christian Science Monitor.
Oh yeah, I get that.
Bi-monthly.
Yes,
they actually talk about this on the commentary track.
Oh, they do. Okay.
Yeah.
They said that while the film's concept and scares were innovative, he felt that it could have just been shot as a 30-minute short since it's shaky camera work and fuzzy images get monotonous. Jesus, I can't read.
Monotonous.
Coming to this week, monotonous after a while, and there's not much room for character development within the very limited plot.
Yeah.
That's not true at all. That's not true. I heard that. Okay, I'm not the only one making noises.
Sorry.
Okay, I think this is my last one. R.L. Schaefer of IGN scored it 2 out of 10 stars and described it as boring, really boring, and a Z-grade low-rent horror outing with no real scares into a genuine big-budget spectacle.
Yeah.
Now, like I said, I hadn't watched this up until last week, and it didn't scare me.
Mm-hmm.
Watching it, like I said, during the middle of the day didn't scare me. Watching with you guys definitely made it more entertaining, and I'm not kidding, and I'm not just saying this to blow smoke up your ass, but yeah, there were some parts where even with the audio is down, I'm like, ooh, I got a little goosebumpy. That's okay, that's good. This really did happen to me a few nights ago. This movie gave me a nightmare.
Oh,
wow.
I woke up not in a panic, but in the middle of the night. It's like maybe I don't know, 1 or 2 in the morning. I get up early, like around 3 or 3:30, but it woke me up. I was reliving not the nighttime stuff, but the daytime stuff, and just aimlessly walking through the woods, never getting out. And then when the nighttime stuff, that's where the impending doom and dread came. And I think that's the part that woke me up. But I was like, whoa. And I really felt like there was something in the room with me. But I was like, okay, that was a nightmare. And I was like, I just had a nightmare about Blair Witch. What the fuck? It didn't scare me at all watching it. So
yeah,
the movie did its job, and effectively it stayed with me. And that's the greatest thing about any horror, or if any art, it stays with you.
Yes.
And it clearly did. And again, I'm not saying that for this. It really did happen. So I was like, I'm going to share that with you guys. Because at first I was like, oh, this movie's whatever, dude. It was overhyped at the time. I didn't see it when it's big. It stuck with me after watching it. So it had a residual effect, which was pretty cool.
Absolutely. It really is. I mean, just one of those things that you start thinking about. And, again, I think I slept with the lights on for like a month after watching it. I mean, the first night I watched it, I slept in my friend's closet. But the nights after that, at the time I was dating a nurse, and she worked at a nursing home. Well, this was a nursing home that was out in kind of like surrounded by woods. And so Aaron's already shaking his head.
I just have that weird like chills.
Yeah. I picked her up from work because she didn't have a car at the time. And I would drop her off at work, and I'd pick her up. And she would, I swear to God, get off at like 11:30 at night. And sometimes, even though if I got there at 11:30, she's a nurse wrapping up her shift, and if she's not done with her rounds, it would be. So I'm sitting in my car in the dark, surrounded by fucking woods, thinking that the Blair Witch is going to run out and grab me out of my car or something. So
see, I don't have that problem because I do security, and I used to work the night shift many, many times. So I was used to being up all the way until daylight.
Yeah.
So I know what you're saying, but I never got that. But I can see how this could do that.
See, that would freak me out. No, the fact that you said you used to do the night shift. I don't think I'd be able to do something like that, or even like I have so many of those stories about different things, and I think one of the things that stuck with me about the Blair Witch is I don't even know what I think the Blair Witch is or was. Right. So when I had these weird we have a forest not far from here, a pretty big one, and I remember being in that when I was younger. I say like I mean a teenager, but I still kind of had this little bit of a thing in my head where I was like, I wonder is that stuff kind of real? Yeah. And then the fact that I didn't know what the Blair Witch looked like, so I couldn't even really put a face to what am I supposed to be looking for? Where is it? Or what is it? That kind of freaked me out even more. I was like, I wonder what it looks like.
I guess for me, working at night where I work, there's still people there, even though everyone's asleep. And don't get me wrong, my imagination got the best of me sometimes, because it just in the middle of the night you hear something like, checking a building. Yeah. So yeah, that'll go through your head. It's just that's the human condition. But I mean, but also too, if you're like, I need money and I'd rather work during the nighttime instead of the day because I don't have to worry about dealing with people.
Yeah,
you kind of get over fears like that because you're just like, oh, this is a little bit easier.
Now, earlier, John, you had mentioned, what was the next found footage movie after Blair Witch Project? And
you found it?
Well, I mean, what I felt like is I'd just touch on a few found footage movies that have come out since the Blair Witch Project. One I remember specifically because it went straight to DVD and it came out in the year 2000, a movie. And Aaron, I don't know if you've seen this. John, you probably haven't seen it. It's called the St. Francisville Experiment.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no.
Yes.
I never heard of it.
And it's actually not half bad. It, it's set in New Orleans and you can kind of think in an old haunted mansion. There are, a few scares in there. Mm-hmm. Aaron, before we had talked about the August Underground films that you had told us about, and I have yet to see those, but you've seen them, right?
Yeah.
And
I went so far to I actually messaged the guy who made them. Because I know he sells the Blu-ray. There's like a Blu-ray trilogy, and I think he's the only way you can get it now, unless you go onto eBay and spend like $200.
Oh
yeah,
but for some reason he didn't seem too keen on sending me a copy. So and now the more I've had some time to decompress from that whole thing, I actually don't want them anymore.
Really?
It's just, I don't know. Like I don't really like. Those kind of movies don't really get to me that much, but I watched the first one a second time and not really my taste in movies. It's like a weird snuffy kind of
grimy.
Yeah, well, it's just like the basic premises like we talked about before. It's just a chick tied up by two serial killer guys.
Yeah.
And they're like torturing and doing like weird shit. And like, but it gets like super graphic, like they cut her nipple off. And then
Jesus Christ!
They smear, they smear shit like in her
twosies
wounds.
Oh Lord!
And like just in her mouth, and she's like vomiting, and they're like,
yeah, that doesn't sound like a good. It just sounds like.
Like, I mean, I get it. I guess it done what he intended to do with being like super shocking and whatever, but it's like I don't know, it's like in a way I feel like it's not even like a thing. It's just like gross.
Yeah. It's shocking to be shocking. Right. Extremely.
Yeah, and like look, I get what he was trying to do, but I just for me personally, like I don't mind gore or anything like that, but one thing for some reason I have a really hard time with in movies is anybody being raped or anything like kind of weird and sexual like that. I kind of have a hard time.
Yeah.
I don't know why, because I'm not saying that I should be comfortable with it, but for some reason that's nearly like a deal breaker for me. I'm like, ugh, I don't even want to fucking.
It's because it's if storytelling is done right, whatever action is, it fits the story. It fits but when you're like, why is that in here?
Yeah, it's like,
I mean, I understand if you're trying to make me feel weird. Okay, that's one thing, but then it's like, I know what you're saying. Yeah, like there's that movie Irreversible with Monica Bellucci, and it's all about like this graphic. That's what the whole movie is about. And it's like. Yeah, that's I don't know why this movie exists. I mean, did it need to be told? I don't know. Maybe I'm not that evolved. Maybe I don't understand the I'm just saying the exploitation of it.
Yeah, that movie is long as well. Isn't that like 2 hours long?
Yeah. And it's like, ooh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's another one of those ones where like I don't know, coming away from it, I was like, I feel a bit weird.
Yeah.
I feel like I've watched something I shouldn't have.
See, I don't mind feeling weird after a movie, but yeah, I guess when it comes to stuff like that, it's just like, am I feeling weird because I'm supposed to, or were they just doing it to fuck with me?
Was it for shock value?
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of weird how found footage kind of, you know, evolved, you know, just, you know, looking at a list of some of these movies, you know, another movie, the Poughkeepsie tapes came out. Interesting, I guess, you know, and kind of falls in that realm of August Underground a little bit. But then you've also got, you've got Wreck that came out, right? With zombies, right? And Cloverfield, of course.
Yeah.
Huge, big budget, you know, kind of a little bit of a hard watch because of TJ Miller. Anymore, but then,
I saw that in the theater and I really enjoyed it. I was like, oh, this is not what I expected.
But then you get the master of zombie movies, and we're talking about George Romero doing Diary of the Dead.
Yeah, I could live without that one.
Yeah. I mean, you know, again, taking something, you know, that the Blair Witch Project did, and being like, you know what, I created Night of the Living Dead. I'm gonna do Diary of the Dead, and we're gonna make it found footage.
Yeah.
But one of, you know, I think one of the biggest, though, you know, District 9. I mean, there was Academy Award buzz over that one. You know, you look at The Last Exorcism.
That's good.
Oh
yeah. I mean, that's a super good one. The Taking of Deborah Logan.
That I was about to mention that one. Yeah.
I mean, Grave Encounters is one of that 1 and 2 are two of my absolute favorites. And I mean, gosh, you're talking about being in a insane asylum, right? You know, of course, Paranormal Activity and all the crap that spawned. Yeah. I saw the first one and I wasn't impressed. I mean, because again, it's like you get 15 minutes of a bed, you know, and then the sheet moves, and it's like they show audience reactions, you know, and they're like, oh my God, they're clawing into each other and stuff. And the sheet moved. That's all that happened. The sheet moved.
Yeah. I went to see that on opening night.
Yeah.
I'll admit that night, I don't want to say it didn't have the effect that something like the Blair Witch had, but it maybe got me a couple of times with like creepy stuff or a jump scare. And I was like, oh, that works really well. It's like one of those like not so good, but like effective at doing those shitty horror movie things that they're trying to do.
Yeah.
And like just from there, then it just went downhill, but they don't age well when you watch them at home.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
you know, and that's another thing they tried to create like a lore and stuff like that. And it just, you know,
I never took the time.
Yeah.
I was just like,
it's so bad and so confusing. I think it's one of those things as well. They didn't sit down and have a framework. It was like each time they decided to make another movie, they would just make the lore work. Be like, oh yeah, remember the Mika guy from number 1? Well, he's actually this person's thing, and it was part of like a cult thing dimension, and you go through a mirror, and no, it's all connected.
Absolutely.
It's a Marvel universe.
Yeah, and it just doesn't feel coherent at all.
Was Sinister kind of like half and half?
He was
watching footage.
He was watching. It wasn't. I mean, it was more on film, right? It was like 35 millimeter film.
He found it.
Yeah,
it was in the attic, right?
True. But you know, movies like Creep. Have you seen?
Yeah,
Creep?
I have not, but I know about it.
I mean, great film. Hell House LLC.
Love that.
Love the Hell House movies. There's so many, and of course, you think that something is tired and outdone, and then a movie like Host comes along and kind of, it just kind of pumps new life into it, right?
Reignites. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that was good. Oh yeah. I know I did this on the last one, but
the
yeah.
VHS. Yeah, John likes showing off his VHS of Host. There he goes.
Oh wow, that's cool. I actually
Yeah.
have an episode coming out soon with Gemma Hurley, who wrote the script for Host.
Damn.
Cool.
Yeah, she was super nice. I'm hoping to maybe talk to the guys, Jed Shepard and Rob Savage, who directed it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that like what they managed to do there, and just hearing the story of how that came together, and how little amount of time they had to make that whole thing, and just from a logistical standpoint, the fact that they basically made the entire thing over Zoom, is like kind of bizarre. And like they've signed a contract now with Blumhouse to produce 3 movies, which is I'm actually really excited to hear what
I look at this. Look what they did with that.
Yeah.
Right.
What can they do with a
Blumhouse
production?
movie is coming out this summer.
Oh, beautiful.
That's
awesome.
Gonna
be great.
Quick turnaround.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And again, it's one of those things. You also, I think we had mentioned before, but the fan films. There's the Friday the 13th fan films. Don't Go in the Woods. That's kind
so
of
good.
found footage. And if you do it right, if you do it smart, if you do it in a new way, and you don't do it just to do it, found footage is a great tool to use. And it's crazy to think that it really kind of, the idea was there before, but no one pulled it off like the Blair Witch Project.
Yeah, 100%.
Because we're still talking about it.
Absolutely,
still being talked about. Yeah,
it used the internet like no one.
It turned me around on it, which is crazy.
No one else had used the internet the way that they used it. No one else had essentially done this. The Blair Witch Project changed. It changed horror, and it changed. It changed movies.
Yeah.
It changed marketing. It changed dollars. It turned it on its head, and it's unfortunate that that Hollywood gets their fingers in there and stuff, but every now and again you get a gem like VHS or Host, and so it's
it still blows my mind that I know they want, like, obviously the studio wanted a quick turnaround because it was it was such a, I guess, a miracle that it managed to make as much money as it did. So I can get, from a business standpoint, they were like, look, we have got to pump this out as quick as possible and strike while the iron is hot. I just can't understand how they turned down any idea that the original creators had, because they wanted to do a prequel, obviously, and they wanted longer than 8 months to do it. And I actually can't believe that the studio were like, nah, we're good, we'll pass.
Yeah.
That just seems really, I get it, like the business standpoint and the money, and you don't want to let it die out.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, do you not realize these guys just made you $250 million out of basically nothing?
Yeah. I'm looking at the sequel. That budget for Book of Shadows was $15 million. Box office 47.7. So technically it was 30 million because of the marketing. That's nowhere near the return on the first one. Yeah. I've attributed this to Warner Brothers for so long, because Warner Brothers has the rights to all the DC like comic book like characters and make movies. They've had that since I think at least the 70s, because of the Christopher Reeves movies. They've never done it right, and now that they see it was Paramount, and then Marvel got with Disney. They see what they're doing and they're like, oh, we got to do that. But it's always been, because like I remember Kevin Smith talking about going in and talking to producers. They don't know anything about the source material, and they brought him in to do like Superman.
Yeah.
And he said he kept on coming in and then like more and more meetings, because they're like, he seems like he know what he's talking about. Because the problem with, I mean, and again, this is a blanketed statement, it could be wrong, and this is not for all producers, but it's just like, I want to make money, and we're not going to go with your idea because we want to go with the money idea, and we're not going to take a gamble. And I can only think in these small boxes. I can't think of the big picture or something down the road. And I think that's why like Warner Brothers never did. They never got to where they should have. They should have been like cranking out these DC movies back in the 80s and 90s and doing them right. They did, and they've had the rights to them. They never had to go through all the hoops. Marvel trying to get back all their IP.
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry, I know that was a digression, but yeah, that just goes to show you, is like, I know what's going on here. Let's erase your whole script. We're going to do it and make money.
Right. And I think that goes to show with the Blair Witch that came out in 2016 as well.
Yeah, we got a name. we don't need anything from the original.
But regardless, like Halloween and all of those other franchises, Blair Witch will live on. The name will live on, and hopefully we'll get some more stuff that's faithful to the original vision, that Daniel and Eduardo had. So
yeah, I hope with the success of the game last year that it might actually make somebody look and go, you know what, actually there's still a lot of life left in this.
100%. And Aaron, you finished the game, right?
I did.
Give us a little bit of background, a little bit of the story of the game.
So in the game, I don't want to say too much because it'll ruin. Because I love hearing when people play the game and come back and go, oh, it was so good and this and that. You are. Let me see. How can I say this without ruining the game?
Well, what's the premise?
Yeah, so you've got your main character. He is going into the forest. There's after been a search party for a missing kid, and you basically are dropped into the game at the very start of this, and you discover that the police and the sheriffs and stuff have went out to the forest. Right at the start of the game, you discover their jeeps and stuff at the entrance to the Black Hills. And from there, then you and your dog basically go out to figure out what's going on, where is everybody, and what's happening. They use like a lot of cool elements. Like you've got a phone that you can make phone calls and text and stuff on, which is kind of interesting because they integrated into the story. Different things happen. It kind of reminds me of there was a game that came out a couple of years ago called Firewatch.
I remember. Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of that in a way. And obviously you've got your dog with you, and he's kind of like a character in a way. If you stay away from him for too long, you start to kind of go crazy. Your character starts to see things that are not there. The game will start to change, and then the dog will, I think, lose its loyalty and stuff, and he'll start to freak out and run away from you and stuff. And there's multiple endings as well to the game, depending on how you play it. And it's funny as well because having played it, I thought that I had done everything right to get one of the good endings. The one thing I will say for anyone who's going to play it, whatever you think the right thing to do in the game is, do the opposite to that. Because the right thing doesn't end up good.
That reminds me of those Telltale Walking Dead games.
Yeah.
There's always consequences.
Really well. They do it really well with it. I think there's 3 different endings, but yeah, I done what I thought was the correct thing.
Yeah.
It turns out that it wasn't. But it's very good, and it does have replayability, especially if you're into the Blair Witch. It's like I said, I think there's 3 multiple endings. Now, some of the key set pieces will be exactly the same, but then depending on how you play it, it kind of branches into different And you know what? It's actually kind of fucking scary.
Oh, cool.
I'm not gonna lie. I played it with a headset on purpose just to kind of try and immerse myself in it. But there's scenes where you're left with just a flashlight, and
Ooh.
you're using this weird you find like a train track kind of a thing, and you're using one of those you know those. It's like an old fashioned.
Oh yeah. The pump.
Yeah. But you find one that has some weird engine thing on it.
Railroad cart. Yeah.
And you're using this, but and it's moving super slow. And as you're moving, you're shining the torch into the woods. And that's all I'll say. But it's it's the sound effects and all are definitely on par with the first movie. There's a lot of things that I'm assuming it's intentional. You think you see things and then you look again and it's not there. It's.
Would you say this is a great extension of the first movie? This game?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. Oh, now the only thing I will say is there's a few things in it that reminded me of the 2016 movie. You see some characters that I think I probably could have done without. Yeah. There's like the thing from the movie, that weird stick man thing that appears in the game, and I'm not really. I think that's actually in the promotional material for it, and in the trailer, I wasn't really too interested in that. I don't really want to see monsters, but it is good. Like, and it's very there's a lot of points in the game where there's clues and different things you've got to figure out. And well, you don't have to. That's the thing. I think you can actually play through. Like I missed the part where you get a code for a combination lock, but you have to find your way back to this door.
Oh, I see.
And as you're going back, it's not the same as it was before. So like I walked and walked and walked, and ended up at the same tree. It does that to you a lot. Like where you're walking and like you think you're convinced, I came down this way, I'm going to turn right around and walk straight back this way, and then you're back where you started somehow.
Just like the movie.
And it has a really cool thing. You've got an old camcorder.
Oh, okay.
And you can use that for night vision, but as you go through the woods, you find tapes, and you put the tapes in, and you're looking at footage of what's after happening in the woods before you've got there.
Oh, no.
So it's kind of like you're looking at like evidence or whatever.
Right.
And when you collect the tapes, you can go back and you have to keep rewinding and looking for clues and different things. And then you match that up with the scene and try and find... It's very good. Yeah, it's very immersive.
That's kind of like what Resident Evil 7 did. It's like you'd watch a videotape and then,
sounds creepy as fuck.
It is. It is. And so, I think I might go ahead and dive into that one.
It's fun. It's very fun, I have to say. Like, I'm not a huge gamer, but that game was fun.
Cool deal. Well, I think we've actually talked about Blair Witch Project longer than the movie, like afterwards, which is,
yes, we have,
which just goes to show how awesome a movie it is, and how impactful it is on horror and all of pop culture.
If anyone hasn't seen it, I recommend it. But I recommend it watching it with friends, especially people who have already seen it.
Yes,
because that makes, I think, in my opinion, makes it a way more enjoyable experience. So that's what I'll give to it.
All right. Well, hope you've enjoyed this watch party. Of course, go out and seek us out on our socials. I run the Twitter at Plastic Fangs Pod.
You can find us on Instagram, Plastic Fangs Podcast, or at Plastic Fangs Podcast, and on Facebook, Plastic Fangs Podcast. Where can we find you, Aaron?
On all social media at First Class Horror. And then everything for the podcast has kind of been put over to, I have a domain now and a website, so it's www.ClassHorrorCast.com. So everything, all the episodes, I'm going to start blog posts and stuff over there.
Awesome.
But yeah, I would say I'm most active on Instagram. So that's First Class Horror on Instagram.
Very good.
Beautiful.
Well, for this collaboration, if you would, between Plastic Fangs Podcast and ClassHorrorCast, I am Rodney Self.
I am John Ramsay.
And I am Aaron Doyle. And I just want to say before we go as well, thanks for taking the time to do this and have me on. This was kind of, I guess, you guys, I maybe put the idea out there, but you guys kind of took over and put everything together and got it going. So I appreciate coming on and being able to talk about my probably top 3 favorite movie of all
Absolutely.
time.
Dude, I had fun. I learned a lot from tonight.
So did I actually, and I didn't think I could.
It was great. I'm just glad that we did a watch party that doesn't involve zombies.
Don't worry. Don't worry.
I'm sorry. I'm zombie dry.
Yes.
All right. Well, have a good night.